Chapter 1194. Stone Warrior was imprisoned in the Hell Research Room. The word, Hell, was naturally the name that omniscient old man came up with. It made Ning Fan speechless. The so-called Hell Research Room is the place where the most confidential research is conducted. Little girl, your grandpa Sherbing is indeed locked up here by me. He is currently conducting a secret research, but unfortunately, this research is not going smoothly. Therefore, your grandpa Sherbing's current physical condition is not particularly good. You have to be mentally prepared. Under omniscient old man's lead, Ning Fan and Bei Xiaoman arrived at an underground research room and found Stone Warrior. Stone Warrior was indeed still alive. He was still struggling at death's door. However, his appearance made Bei Xiaoman burst into tears on the spot. At this moment, the Stone Warrior had been completely dismembered by the omniscient old man. The dismembered limbs and torso had been completely destroyed. It looked scorched and tattered, as if it had gone through some inhumane research. After the research, it was thrown in a corner like garbage. Only his head was left. It was placed in a huge sealed container, unconscious. The container was filled with an unknown light green liquid that was glowing with a faint light. What did you do to my grandpa, Stone Warrior? I want to kill him. Bei Xiaoman's beautiful eyes turned red. Killing intent from her gui vein instantly swept across the entire underground research room. That was the existence that she regarded as her grandfather. However, he was mutilated to such a state. How could she remain calm? Omniscient old man flicked his finger and dispersed the invisible baleful qi. How could he be frightened by Bei Xiaoman's minuscule killing intent? He shrugged shamelessly. Little girl, why are you so angry? Isn't your grandpa Stone Warrior still alive and well? How can this be called alive and well? Do you want me to cut you into a human stick and soak it in the water? That way, you can live a good life. As long as the crystal core of a puppet is not destroyed, it won't be life-threatening even if the other parts of the body are destroyed. Your grandpa Stone Warrior's crystal core is located in his head. Now that his head is intact, he is naturally alive and well. If it wasn't for the fact that the research has not been completed, I could have fitted him with new torso and limbs at any time. I could then forge a brand new Stone Warrior. He was too weak in the past. As long as I give him stronger materials, your grandpa Stone Warrior will definitely be able to return to your side. He is only at the divine transformation realm. He won't be able to protect you who is at the life immortal realm. Stinky old man. You don't understand. You don't know anything. I don't need Grandpa Stone Soldier to protect me. I don't need him to become stronger. I just want him to live well. He was her grandfather. Grandpa. Heh, you actually treat the puppet as your grandfather. You're quite similar to me. I've also become sworn brothers with Brother Donkey, and we're brothers with Cockroach and Cricket. Turns out we're actually the same type of people. What a coincidence. Only a ghost would be the same as you. Ning Fan frowned and patted Bei Xiaoman's head to stop the meaningless quarrel between the two of them. The most important thing now was not to argue about who was right and who was wrong, but to save the soldiers. In the past, Ning Fan had captured Sherbing alive. During that period of time, Sherbing served Ning Fan as his subordinate. Seeing his subordinate being tortured to such a state by omniscient old man in the past, Ning Fan did not feel good at all. He looked at omniscient old man calmly, but his tone was terrifyingly cold. Let's not talk about such trivial matters. I just want to ask Senior one question. How long do you need to give Stone Warrior a new body? As long as a new torso, for limbs, and the stone soldiers were replaced, they would be reborn. How long it will take depends on the grade of the puppet body I'm giving him. His original puppet body is just a divine transformation realm material. It's too weak. I can spend 10 days to modify it into a puppet body made of truth purification material. If it's a void-shedding puppet, it'll take at least 20 days. If it's a broken sense puppet, it'll take 1.5 months. As for an eternal ancient puppet, forget about it. The grade of this puppet's crystal core is too low. The cost of forcefully modifying it into an eternal ancient puppet is too high. It's even more expensive than building 10 eternal ancient puppets from scratch. This isn't appropriate. It's better to modify it into a broken sense puppet, Omniscient Old Man said with a pained expression. Expensive my ass. Didn't you modify all my other puppets to the immortal venerable or immortal king realm? Why didn't you say it was expensive then? You've already made my grandpa Stone Warrior into such a state. You must compensate me. I want you to use the best materials to modify him to the highest grade. Bei Xiaoman naturally wanted to fight for the greatest benefits for her grandpa Stone Warrior. Modify? This old man didn't modify those puppets. This old man only fed them, puppet crystals, to stimulate their maximum potential. The maximum potential of a puppet varies according to the materials used to make it. Even the best puppet master can't convert all the energy in the puppet's materials into the puppet's cultivation base. The 13 puppets' cores and materials used to build them are all ancient materials. Therefore, I only need to use a few tricks to let them unleash their greatest potential and evolve them from life immortal crossing puppets into ancient puppets. But your Grandpa Stone Warrior is different. Your Grandpa Stone Warrior's maximum potential is only at the spirit severing realm. I'm not cultured. I don't understand a single word you're saying. I only have one request. Use all the best materials you have on my Grandpa Stone Warrior. If you don't... Bei Xiaoman took out the tattered nominal disciple token and raised it high. Omniscient Old Man's expression changed. He took a few steps back and said anxiously, "Little girl, let's talk this out. I'll do as you say. Use the best materials. This old man promises to use the best materials to modify your Grandpa Stone Warrior's body. Quickly take back the token. Why didn't you listen to me earlier? Why did you force me to use my ultimate technique? Sigh. My reputation has gone down the drain. Why do I have to be afraid of this token? By the way, little girl, if you use high-grade materials, I still need to collect some data before I can give your Grandpa Stone Warrior a perfect modification." Collect what? Data. What's that? The so-called data is to use a low-dimensional perspective to look up to and interpret the essence of the Tao. It's speak like a human. To put it simply, I can use the best materials to modify your Grandpa Stone Warrior, but I need your husband to be my assistant. I need to conduct some research on his body to assist in the modification. Impossible. There's no room for discussion. Bei Xiaoman shielded Ning Fan behind her in a protective manner. Her Grandpa Stone Warrior had already been studied by Omniscient Old Man until only his head was left. She would not allow Ning Fan to be studied to such a miserable state. Ning Fan looked at the sealed container that contained Stone Warrior in silence. After a long time, he suddenly opened his mouth. "Is Senior's research on my body really helpful in the perfect modification of Stone Warrior?" "Yes." Omniscient Old Man's face lit up when he heard that there was hope. "All right then. I agree to Senior's request. I'm willing to cooperate with Senior's research to a certain extent." "What?" Bei Xiaoman was so anxious that she almost burst into tears when she heard Ning Fan's words. She did not want Ning Fan to turn into a stick. The reason why Ning Fan agreed to Omniscient Old Man's research request was partly for Stone Warrior's sake and partly for himself. Along the way, he could see that Omniscient Old Man had conducted a lot of deviant research. However, he seemed to be really capable. Just the theory about the potential of puppets alone had deeply convinced Ning Fan. That was a theory that Bei Xiaoman did not understand, but Ning Fan did. Omniscient Old Man had a way to stimulate the puppet's greatest potential. He also seemed to have a way to stimulate other living beings' greatest potential. The powerful spirit insects and demonic beasts that he cultivated were proof of that. There might be a huge risk in being researched by him. However, if the research goes well, his strength might also increase tremendously. Ning Fan wanted to try this possibility. He wanted to see if being researched by Omniscient Old Man would be beneficial to his cultivation base. Of course, he understood that Omniscient Old Man was a mad researcher. Even if he cooperated with him, it was impossible for him to be turned into a stick. Thus, he decided to wait and see first. Whether it was good or bad, he would only know after seeing it with his own eyes. Thus, for the next 10 days, Ning Fan stayed in the underground research lab. This made Bei Xiaoman very worried. No matter how Ning Fan comforted her, she was still worried that Ning Fan would be turned into a stick. The word research had already cast a shadow in her heart. During these 10 days, Omniscient Old Man did not conduct any research on Ning Fan. He only told Ning Fan to soak in the research pool and not to leave. As for Omniscient Old Man himself, he was busy refining the puppet's limbs and body parts. He would install these things on Stone Warrior's body in the future. The research pool was not big. It was only 1 zhang square. The pool was filled with black sticky liquid. It smelled a little fishy. Bei Xiaoman felt disgusted after smelling it once. However, Ning Fan stayed in the pool for 10 days. She felt that Omniscient Old Man was torturing Ning Fan in a different way. However, to Ning Fan, who possessed a 9th Revolution Golden Grade Medicine Soul, this pool of liquid was simply a priceless treasure. Ink Sea Ganoderma. This pool of liquid is actually made from the liquid of the Ink Sea Ganoderma. Ink Sea Ganoderma is an innate spiritual herb. However, even if it is an innate spiritual herb, there are actually different grades. The innate spiritual herbs in the illusionary world are basically low-grade innate spiritual herbs. Due to the lack of spiritual qi, there are very few mid-grade innate spiritual herbs. The liquid in this pool actually comes from the mid-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma. It's the same mid-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma, but the medicinal efficacy of the low-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma is just like heaven and earth. A low-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma can increase the body refinement cultivation base of an ancient cultivator by thousands of years. However, this pool of liquid is different. It's completely 2 different grades. If I can absorb all of this medicinal liquid, my ancient devil cultivation base will at least advance beyond the 100 tribulations realm. No, this pool of medicinal liquid is not as simple as it seems. There are other components in it. When combined together, the medicinal effect has a purifying effect. This pool of medicinal liquid can actually purify the Tao nurturing immortal grain in my magic power. Ning Fan was a little surprised. Not only did Omniscient Old Man know about the hidden danger of the Tao nurturing immortal grain in the illusionary worlds in heavy wood, but he also had the means to get rid of the Tao nurturing immortal grain. Moreover, as soon as the research begins, he immediately used a method to help me get rid of the Tao nurturing immortal grain. Was he doing this out of kindness or because he wanted to make the research go smoothly in the future? Based on this Omniscient Old Man's character, it's probably the latter. This was a method that was different from the multi-layered soul sealing technique. It could also get rid of the Tao nurturing immortal grain in one's magic power. If it is used together with the multi-layered soul sealing technique, the effect seemed to be even stronger. Previously, in order to escape, Ning Fan had unsealed all of his cultivation base. Now, he was soaking in the medicinal liquid and circulating the multi-layered soul sealing technique again to seal his cultivation base. The speed at which the multi-layered soul sealing technique removed the Tao nurturing immortal grain was originally very slow. However, with the help of this pool of medicinal liquid, the speed increased by a few thousand times. 10 days. After 10 days, Ning Fan had absorbed all the power in the pool of medicinal liquid. His ancient devil cultivation base directly increased by 110 tribulations. His total magic power had already passed 14,300 tribulations. There was still a small amount left. Of course, as his cultivation base was sealed by the multi-layered soul sealing technique, Ning Fan could not use all of his magic power at the moment. He could only use about 3,000 tribulations. With the help of this pool of medicinal liquid, Ning Fan only used 10 days to remove the magic power of 3,000 tribulations. If he has a few more pools of medicinal liquid like this, Ning Fan was confident that he could get rid of all the Tao nurturing immortal grain in his body in a very short period of time. I wonder if Senior Omniscient still has any mid-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma. It would be great if he does. Unfortunately, after Ning Fan asked about it, the answer he got was that there was only 1 mid-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma. All of it had been used on him. Ning Fan then asked about the method to nurture the mid-grade innate Ink Sea Ganoderma. However, the Omniscient Old Man seemed to be in a bad mood. He did not talk much about the topic. Instead, he acted like a madman, recording and drawing on a piece of paper. After a while, he suddenly went crazy and tore everything that he recorded into pieces. Unreasonable. This is too unreasonable. This is different from what I have calculated in the beginning. According to my calculations, this brat would need at least 3 months to adapt to the violent medicinal power of the ink sea Ganoderma. He would also need another 4 months to fully absorb the medicinal power. Moreover, there would still be a few months of side effects after that. However, this brat only used 10 days to perfectly absorb all of the medicinal liquid. This kind of ability to perfectly assimilate the heretical power cannot be explained with his identity as a divine spirit. Is it because of his cultivation method? This brat's yin-yang transformation has actually reached such a level. He has actually already mastered the essence of yin-yang. Let me try again. I don't believe that his body is so compatible with the heretical power. This time I will increase the medicinal power. Thus, the omniscient old man prepared another pool of medicinal liquid. This time, the medicinal strength of the liquid was increased by 30%. As a result, this time, Ning Fan only used 9 days to absorb all of the medicinal power. The ancient devil's cultivation base increased by 140 tribulations. After the multi-layered soul sealing technique was used to remove the magic power, the number of magic power increased to 7,000 tribulations. Unbelievable! This is simply unbelievable. This time, not only did I increase the medicinal power of the ink sea Ganoderma, but I also changed the composition of the other supplementary ingredients. However, the result was that not only did this brat's body adapt to the medicinal power perfectly, but the speed of adaptation has also increased. The supplementary ingredients are obviously different. As long as the main ingredient is the same, it will be fine. Let me try again. This time, I will use all the ink sea Ganoderma in my hands. The medicinal power will be more than 3 times stronger than the first time. Moreover, I will increase the medicinal power of the supplementary ingredients. Even ordinary quasi-saints would not dare to directly absorb such a concentrated medicinal liquid with their physical bodies. This brat's body refining cultivation base has limited the possibility of him directly absorbing the medicinal liquid. If he can still do this, it means that he really has the possibility of advancing his physique. The world only knows that the end of the minor 5 elements body is the great 5 elements body. However, they don't know that the great 5 elements body can be extended to yin and yang, and there are endless possibilities of advancement. Yin and yang are shapeless. Therefore, this possibility must be shaped by oneself. Everyone's possibility is different. Master's great 5 elements body has advanced to the origin magnetic extreme destruction body. My great 5 elements body has advanced to the yin-yang phantom light body. What kind of possibility does this brat have? The omniscient old man who was filled with hope prepared the medicinal liquid for the 3rd time. The concentration of the medicinal liquid this time gave Ning Fan an extremely dangerous feeling. When he soaked in the medicinal liquid, his divine spirit physical body actually felt like it was slowly corroding. However, when his body automatically circulated the yin-yang transformation technique, the compatibility of his body became better and better. Gradually, the corrosion disappeared and was replaced by the crazy absorption of the medicinal power. This time, the absorption of the medicinal liquid lasted for a whole month. When Ning Fan had absorbed all the medicinal liquid, his ancient devil cultivation base rose by 350 tribulation stage. After 3 rounds of research, Ning Fan's magic power increased by a total of 600 tribulation stage. His pure ancient devil cultivation base had risen to the 4th tribulation immortal king realm. His total magic power had risen to 1,800 tribulation stage. What made Ning Fan even happier was that the Tao nourishing immortal food in his body had finally been expelled. He no longer needed to seal his magic power in the future. This feeling of getting rid of all the hidden dangers was indescribably delightful. Thank you, Senior. It is extremely difficult to increase one's magic power after the 10,000 tribulation stage. However, I was able to increase my magic power by 600 tribulation stage within a short period of time. I have to say that this is all thanks to Senior. However, The medicinal liquid that I soaked in doesn't seem to have anything to do with modifying the stone warriors. Didn't seniors say that studying me will help in modifying the stone warriors? That's right. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with me at all. Ha. I finally got the first data of your body. Perfect data. Ha. Now, I am very sure that all my previous guesses are wrong. You have infinite possibilities. At the very least, your possibility is much higher than mine. So, all the research that Senior has done on me was all a lie? Ning Fan was speechless. Young man, don't be so calculative. I obtained the data while you obtained your cultivation base. Everyone is happy. What's wrong with that? What's funny is that everyone in the world is avoiding me like a snake or a scorpion. They are worried that I will study them. However, they don't know that being studied by me is a great fortune. As long as the research goes smoothly, their strength will greatly increase. However, if the research fails, they will also have to pay a heavy price. Ning Fan said disapprovingly. Of course, he knew that the sudden increase in his cultivation base was actually very risky. If his body could not adapt to the medicinal liquid, it was highly likely that his body would explode and he would die. Even a quasi-Saint Realm expert would only dare to soak in the medicinal liquid of high concentration for the first time. They would hesitate for the second time. As for the third time, they would definitely shake their heads and reject it as the risk was too great. You didn't have to pay any price, did you? It's fine as long as the result is good. Young man, don't be calculative. Alright. During the time when you were soaking in the medicinal liquid, I had already finished refining all the body parts of the stone warrior. Next, I will begin assembling it. The assembling process is a little time-consuming. It will at least take a few months and we can't afford any disturbances. Once the assembly of the puppet is interrupted, that stinky little girl's grandpa stone warrior might just die. In these few months, you don't need to soak in the medicinal liquid anymore. Besides, I don't have such a high-grade medicinal liquid for you to soak in. You can go to the various training grounds in the underground research room to improve your body and fully unlock the potential of your body. I will send someone to follow you and guide you in your cultivation while recording your cultivation data. I am very interested in the possibilities of your body. However, I have something else to do now and I can't continue my research for the time being. Of course, if you are still willing to cooperate with me in my research in the future, I have the confidence to stimulate your greatest potential. Where is Brother Xiang? As soon as Omniscient Old Man's voice fell, the underground research room was suddenly filled with billowing black smoke. Then, the black smoke condensed and fell to the ground, turning into a red-skinned burly man with elephant tusks in his mouth. The red-skinned burly man was a 7 Tribulation immortal emperor. He was not a puppet but a demon elephant. When the red-skinned burly man looked at Omniscient Old Man, his eyes were filled with fear and obedience. However, when he looked at Ning Fan, his eyes were filled with arrogance and disdain. 4,800 Tribulation magic power. This young man's magic power is not bad but his other aspects are simply trash. Master, do you really want me to guide this young man while you are in seclusion to modify your spiritual puppets? I'm afraid that I might not be able to control my strength and kill this young man. I also know that this young man is lacking in all aspects. In short, you should guide him well. At least, you must help him improve in one aspect. Remember to record his data. I am very interested in his data. Understood. Young man, follow me. Master is going to work. Please don't stay here and disturb him. A mere 7 Tribulation immortal emperor actually dared to order Ning Fan around with an arrogant tone. If other Doomsday immortal emperors did such a thing, they would certainly be asking for humiliation. But for some unknown reason, Ning Fan actually felt a sense of danger from this elephant demon. This is not a 7 Tribulation immortal emperor of the Doomsday immortal emperor realm. He is a 7 Tribulation immortal emperor who is at the same level as an ancient great emperor. Not only that, this demon elephant seemed to have some means that even Ning Fan felt threatened. Brother Xiang, may I know where we are going now? Ning Fan asked politely. With his temperament, he would not get angry just because the other party was a little rude. Brother Xiang? Who do you think you are? How dare you call me brother? When I occupied a mountain in the true world and became the king, the starting point of your reincarnation had not even begun. You must call me Senior Xiang. Don't you even know this basic etiquette? Ning Fan frowned. He still did not get angry with this demon elephant. After all, this was the territory of omniscient old man. He had to give him some face. However, he did not call this person senior. He also had his own pride. Thus, he chose to remain silent. In the dark underground research room, the teleportation formations intertwined. After a dozen of teleportation formations, Ning Fan arrived at an extremely spacious training ground. There were all kinds of training equipment on the ground. Many powerful ancient existences were cultivating in silence here. When they saw the demon elephant bringing Ning Fan over, everyone was surprised. However, they did not show any reaction due to their high status. They turned a blind eye to Ning Fan's arrival. There was only a cute sludge monster who ran to Ning Fan's side with her big and cute eyes, welcoming Ning Fan's arrival. Welcome, newcomer. As a gift to welcome your arrival, I allow you to touch my head. It was actually a female sludge monster. Her tone of acting cute was totally like a little lowly asking for a pat on the head. Ning Fan was not bewitched by the cute attack of the sludge monster. He also did not reach out his hand to touch her head. This sludge monster looked very weak. Other than being cute, it had no other good points. However, Ning Fan's eyesight was extremely sharp towards danger. As the sludge monster got closer to him, Ning Fan actually felt as if there was a dagger on his back. Obviously, there was something strange about this sludge monster. Thus, he naturally would not touch it recklessly. Seeing that Ning Fan did not touch her, the sludge monster continued to act cute. When the demon elephant saw the sludge monster's behavior, he became extremely impatient. He said coldly, "Feng Nuo, put away your act. This isn't the falling mountain of the true world. Even though this kid is as weak as trash, he won't be bewitched by your words." TSK. How boring. The sludge monster let out a soft humph and crawled to the side with its soft body. However, the way it looked at Ning Fan was a little more serious. The research material that Master found this time seems to be quite capable. This is not good. If this kid really has the ability to stay here forever, won't I have another person who will get a share of the cultivation resources? It seems like I need to put in some effort to push this person away. Genius website. Apex mobile version. Chapter 1195. The elephant demon wore a deadpan expression and led Ning Fan to familiarize himself with the entire drill ground. It was also an order from the omniscient old man. From his attitude, it could be seen that if it wasn't for the omniscient old man's order, he would not waste his time on Ning Fan at all. He was too arrogant. The elephant demon was not the only one who had a sense of superiority towards Ning Fan. The other ancient existences also had the same attitude towards him. When Ning Fan walked past them, they did not even bother to look at him. They were a group of ancient existences who were used to seeing big figures and grand occasions. Some of them were even brought to the illusory world by the omniscient old man from the true world. They had lived for thousands of generations. Facing a junior like Ning Fan who was in the cultivation declining stage, it was inevitable for them to have the mentality of taking advantage of their seniority. The dignified Yama king of the Eastern Heaven was ignored wherever he went. This was the first time Ning Fan received such cold treatment after displaying his full magic power. It was just a cold treatment. Ning Fan's state of mind would not be affected by such a reason. Compared to these ancient existences who took advantage of their seniority, he was more interested in the cultivation equipment here. At one corner of the drill ground, there was a young man of the devil race using a gigantic purple sand grindstone to grind his spirit sense again and again. Each time his spirit sense was broken and reborn, it would slightly improve his spirit sense. At the other corner, there was an old mountain demon sitting in a green pond with immortal mist surrounding him. When he breathed, he seemed to be able to absorb the power of the pond water to strengthen his demon eyes. There was an ancient beast that looked like a Qilin who was spitting out blazing flames, boiling a pot of immortal water that could not be boiled no matter how hard he tried. There was also an old man who was dressed like a woodcutter. He was holding a giant axe, chopping down a acacia tree that could never be cut down. His sweat was as dirty as mud, and it even carried the stench of dead fish. At first glance, the cultivation methods of these people were very strange. However, with Ning Fan's eyesight, the more he looked at them, the more shocked he became. The cultivation methods of these people were actually so terrifying. This man is actually cultivating the indestructible spirit sense technique. And he has actually just entered the immortal palace. The green pond below him is not water but the soul liquid that was formed when he shattered his demon soul. As a demon cultivator, he actually abandoned his demon soul and cultivated his demon eyes instead. He is actually still alive after shattering his demon soul. This immortal pot is strange. It's not boiling water but the blood of this beast. This man is just chopping down a tree. How could he cleanse his meridians and marrow to such an extent? Ning Fan really felt as if his horizons had been broadened. I originally came here with an indifferent attitude, but after seeing these cultivation machines, I changed my mind. If I use these machines to cultivate, I might be able to reap some benefits. Senior Omniscience methods seem to be above my imagination. While Ning Fan was pondering, he suddenly heard a cold snort and interrupted him. Master ordered me to guide you in your cultivation. Although I am unwilling, I have no choice but to obey. The cultivation equipment here is divided into 3 levels. Elementary equipment cultivates the basics such as strength, technique, and speed. Intermediate equipment is more detailed. Using strength as an example, the cultivation of strength is divided into fist strength, kicking strength, palm strength, grip strength, strength precision, and extreme strength. Advanced equipment cultivates the most profound, using strength as an example. Advanced equipment cultivates the changes in strength and the laws of strength. What the elephant demon was most proficient in was his strength. That was why he used his most familiar strength as an example. Ning Fan was very surprised. He did not expect that there would be so many ways to cultivate strength in this place. When ordinary cultivators cultivate strength, they usually only pay attention to the size of their strength. However, in this place, there seemed to be more. Next, I will guide you in the cultivation of strength. Hold on. I want to ask if there are any cultivation equipment here that can increase the purity of magic power. As expected, what Ning Fan wanted to improve the most right now was still his pitifully low magic power purity. Magic power purity? Yes, there is, but the elephant demon, who was a big man, suddenly flushed. There was no other reason than that he was a muscle maniac. He only knew how to cultivate strength, and he only knew how to cultivate strength. He was not very good at cultivating the purity of magic power. Normally, ordinary people did not need to cultivate the purity of magic power at all, right? After all, the cultivation speed of ordinary people was very slow, especially after they reached the eternal ancient realm. It was extremely difficult to advance to the next level, and they would be stuck for tens of millions of years. After staying in a cultivation realm for such a long time, it was enough for the magic power of the cultivation realm to be sufficiently condensed. Thus, the purity of magic power would naturally not be a problem. However, Ning Fan was one of the rare exceptions in the world. Putting aside the fact that his cultivation realm was rising fast, he had already reached the immortal king realm at the age of 100,000 years. Even in the true world, he would still be considered as one of the best. However, due to the fact that he cultivated 4 bloodlines, the level of his magic power was far beyond his cultivation realm. The magic power of 14,800 tribulations was not the level that an immortal king should have at all. Something like the purity of magic power was a problem that only geniuses would have. The elephant demon had never experienced such a problem in his long life. I know that the purity of your magic power is poor. However, it's better for us to cultivate strength. Magic power and whatnot are all illusions. Once your magic power is exhausted, you will fall into a predicament. Only strength will not deceive you, and only muscles will not let you down. Spilling blood is the correct way for a man to fight. Look at you. You are as skinny as a monkey, and your strength is pitifully small. You are as weak as a woman. The elephant demon pushed Ning Fan as if he wanted to prove how weak Ning Fan's small body was, as if he was trying to prove that Ning Fan's body was weak. However, when he pushed Ning Fan, he was shocked. He had used half of his strength to push Ning Fan, but he actually did not manage to push Ning Fan's small body. Underneath this weak and frail skin, there was actually a tremendous strength that caught him off guard. Unbeknownst to him, Ning Fan was equally shocked. He had already proven how strong his physical body was countless times. Even though his physical body was strong in defense and weak in offense, his strength was definitely not weak either. How could his physical strength be weak when he could wield the ocean-defying sword that weighed 18 stars? However, his body was nearly shaken by the elephant demon's push. Just how much strength does this elephant demon have? Besides, if Ning Fan was not mistaken, this elephant demon did not use his full strength at all. In fact, he only used an extremely small portion of his strength. If he uses his full strength, no one below the quasi-saint realm would be able to resist his terrifying strength. In terms of strength alone, Ning Fan could not help but admit that he was much weaker than this elephant demon. No wonder this person speaks arrogantly. It turns out that he also has some capabilities. I've misjudged you. I initially thought that little friend is as weak as the others. Unexpectedly, you are also an expert among body cultivators. If I'm not mistaken, in this drill ground, other than me, no one can defeat little friend in terms of strength. All right. I'll guide little friend in his cultivation right now. As soon as he saw that Ning Fan was also an expert body cultivator, the elephant demon was excited and his attitude changed for the better. Now, he wanted to pull Ning Fan along to cultivate his strength. From his point of view, even though Ning Fan's current strength was not bad, there was still a huge gap between him and him. He wanted to train Ning Fan's strength to a higher level and then let Ning Fan spar with him in terms of body techniques. However, Ning Fan just wanted to increase the purity of his magic power. It was because once the purity of his magic power increases, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. The benefits of this kind of cultivation were incomparable to other cultivation projects. What a stubborn little fellow. Do you really want to cultivate the purity of your magic power wholeheartedly? Don't you regret it? It's just cultivating the purity of my magic power. Why would I regret it? Ning Fan was puzzled. Because the place to cultivate the purity of magic power is not here. The cultivation of the purity of magic power is too special. It needs to be matched with a special environment of Earth Vein. Master has indeed built a training ground for cultivating the purity of magic power. That place is very dangerous. Are you sure you want to go there? Yes. Dangerous? How dangerous could it be? Could that place be in the ant nest of Guangzhou Earth Abyss? Even if it was such a dangerous place, as long as it could increase the purity of magic power, Ning Fan was willing to go and have a look. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If there was really danger, he could just come back. I'm actually not very good at cultivating the purity of magic power. I'll find someone who's good at it for you to go with you. What do you think? The elephant demon was a man, but his face turned red again. There's no need for someone to accompany me. I also have some experience in cultivating the purity of magic power. As long as I reach the place, I'll explore and cultivate by myself. That won't do. Master needs your cultivation data. There must be someone by his side to record every moment of your cultivation. If little friend doesn't want someone to accompany you, it will make things difficult for me. The elephant demon's eyes scanned the entire training ground and suddenly lit up. How could I forget about this guy? Isn't this guy an expert in the purity of magic power? The purity of his magic power is so high that it can burn his enemies to death. At this moment, in a corner, a mud monster who was planning to exclude Ning Fan suddenly shuddered and had a bad feeling. Feng Nua, accompany this little friend to the 12th floor. He wants to cultivate the purity of his magic power there. The elephant demon said without any hesitation. Go to the 12th floor? I'm not going. Whoever wants to go can go. The mud monster's expression changed drastically. She no longer pretended to be a gentle and cute girl. Even if she was beaten to death, she would never go to the 12th floor of the Earth Abyss. That was the forbidden area of the Light Ant clan. Even a quasi-saint would not dare to go there and cause trouble. She was not even a quasi-saint. She must be crazy to accompany a fool there. Humph. Master ordered me to be in charge of all matters related to this young man's cultivation. Of course, that includes arranging a sparring partner for this young man. This time, you have to go whether you want to or not. Otherwise, when Master blames you, you and I won't be able to bear it. Damn it, you only know how to use Master to pressure me. Hearing that its Master would blame it, the sludge monster's expression became even more fearful. It was as if the omniscient old man's anger was 10,000 times more dangerous than the Light Ant forbidden land. At this moment, she felt as if she had been bitten by 10,000 wild dogs. He did not care about the sludge monster's feelings at all. He activated a teleportation formation that was rarely used and was covered in dust. In the end, both of them were teleported away. Little friend, Master's cultivation equipment has a cultivation effect that is 1,000 times stronger. With Feng Nua's guidance, you will definitely be able to complete the cultivation of the purity of your magic power very quickly. Once you're done with your cultivation, I'll definitely guide you in your cultivation. Men of my generation should still talk with their muscles. When the time comes, you can't run away anymore. The elephant demon was filled with anticipation. Ning Fan was slightly speechless. He didn't want to talk to anyone's muscles. After teleporting for a while, he directly teleported to the 12th level of the Light Clan's Earth Abyss from the underground drill ground. As soon as he entered the 12th floor, Ning Fan felt a wave of scorching heat rushing towards his face. His face immediately lit up with joy. The fire elemental energy here was so strong. This place was obviously also a rare land of extreme fire in this world. Moreover, it was the type of fire that was extremely good. The ground was like the surface of the sun. The temperature was so high that it could melt a 12th Nirvana magic treasure. Moreover, there were flames that were so pure that one could make one's hair stand on the ground. This was not a place where ordinary people could stay. After the sludge monster arrived at this place, its entire body of mud was almost dried up. Its surface was so dry that it was wrinkled. With a wave of its hand, it took out a water gourd and gulped down the water, trying to replenish the water that its body had lost. She really did not want to come to this place. Be it the environment or the hidden dangers here, they were all the reasons why she did not want to come here. Moreover, she did not want to accompany Ning Fan here. Moreover, she did not want to guide Ning Fan in his cultivation. If she guides Ning Fan to become stronger, wouldn't it be harder for him to leave? She did not want to do something like supporting her enemy. However, she had no other choice. The elephant demon used its master to threaten her. She had no choice but to obey. Figured, I'm warning you. Even though the cultivation ground that my master secretly opened in the 12th level of the Earth Abyss is hidden, if you make too much of a commotion, you will still be noticed by those bitches from the Light Ant clan. At that time, be careful or they will come to this place one by one. They will capture you and fuck you 100 times, 1,000 times. What's with the tone of this female devil? The corner of Ning Fan's mouth twitched slightly. Is this the true nature of the sludge monster? Does it no longer want to maintain its previous image of a cute loli? Is it already completely using the tone of an old hag to speak? Ignoring the sludge monster, Ning Fan observed the extreme fire earth vein in this place and smiled faintly. Interesting, previously he had used the treasure-searching compass to search for the extreme fire lands in the northern heaven. Among them, there were 4 places with the strongest extreme fire. At that time, Ning Fan only found the specific location of the extreme fire land of the Black Devil sect. The other 3 places were located in secret locations. At this moment, the fiery land under his feet seemed to be one of the 3 places with unknown locations. This is really a coincidence. In this land of extreme fire, even if Ning Fan does not use the all-knowing old man's cultivation equipment, he could still use the pure refinement art to increase the purity of his magic power. If he uses the all-knowing old man's cultivation equipment to assist him in cultivating the pure refinement art, his speed of purification might even increase by a lot. However, why is there only a boundless sea of fire here? There's no all-knowing old man's cultivation equipment. Ning Fan asked in confusion. What an idiot. Can't you see such a huge cultivation equipment? This is the same as the saying, a leaf can't see Mount Tai. Brat, fly up to the sky and take a look at this fiery land. What does it look like? The sludge monster sneered. Upon hearing that, Ning Fan flew up to the sky in a flash and looked down at the fiery land. When he saw the panoramic view of the land, he was shocked. The shape of this vast land that stretched across several continents was actually like a giant heart that was torn apart by someone. Each piece of the heart was a fiery land. My master suppressed the Ant Lord's reincarnation for 10 eras. He once shattered the Ant Lord's heart and brought him to this world. On this fiery land, there are formation marks carved by my master. Ordinary people can't see them. Even the fools of the Light Ant clan don't know that there's a grand formation left by my master here. We need to use this formation to cultivate. We just need to form hand seals to activate it, and we will be able to unleash the power of this formation. The sludge monster's muddy hands suddenly formed a hand seal. Instantly, vein-like patterns rose from the ground and the light of the formation flickered faintly. The light of the formation was deliberately concealed. If one doesn't look closely, it wouldn't be obvious at all. As soon as the formation was activated, a strange fragrance spread out and spread to the distance. What formation is this? Ning Fan asked. First god of cooking, second father baiting and killing formation. The name given by my master is very strange. I feel the same. Although the name of the formation was strange, it was indeed extraordinary. This formation could produce a wisp of strange fragrance. That fragrance seemed to have a fatal attraction to certain kinds of living beings. As expected, not long after, there was movement in the distance. A dried corpse that had been dead for an unknown number of years separated the sea of fire and walked towards them following its body's instincts. It was the dried corpse of an ancient cultivator. Its face was ferocious and full of resentment. It had been dead for countless years, but it still couldn't rest in peace. The steps of the dried corpse seemed to be very slow. However, every step it took could instantly travel a great distance. It was extremely strange. The dried corpse's body had been weathered and was so weak that it could turn into ashes at any time. However, it still gave off a powerful aura that was not inferior to an ancient immortal venerable. The formation that Senior Omniscient set up here can attract the dried corpses here. Could it be that there's something special about these dried corpses that can increase the purity of my magic power? Ning Fan asked with a guess. I didn't expect a fool like you to have some intelligence. That's right. These dried corpses are the corpse slaves of the Ant Lord. Those who are killed by the Ant Lord will become like this and will never be able to reincarnate. If you go and kill this corpse, you can free this person. Secondly, you can obtain the Ant Lord's seed from this person's body. You can peel off its skin and boil it until it's soft. Then you can boil it and make it into soup. It will be very nutritious after you consume it. You go and hunt the corpses. I will light a fire to cook for you. The sludge monster took out pots and pans like a magic trick. It did not even need to deliberately light a fire. Instead, it directly used the flames on the ground to boil water. Her expression was filled with reluctance. Obviously, deep in her heart, she did not want to help Ning Fan in his cultivation at all. However, she had no choice but to obey him. Corpse slave. Ning Fan looked at the dried corpse that was getting closer to him and fell into silence. He did not know which ancient cultivator this dried corpse was from which immortal world. He did not know whether it had any regrets before it died. Once it dies, all the bitter cultivation of its entire life would go down the drain. Even if it died, it would not be able to rest in peace. This was the cruelty of the cultivation world. If you don't become stronger, not only would you not be able to choose how you die, even resting in peace after death would be a luxury. Junior Ning Fan is here to send you to your death. Ning Fan said something that the sludge monster could not understand. With a slash of the ocean-defying sword, the dried corpse exploded into ashes that filled the sky. He actually talked to a corpse slave that has no spiritual intelligence at all. What a fool! The sludge monster eagerly boiled the water. It only thought that Ning Fan's action was a kind of madness. Ning Fan did not need the sludge monster to understand him. The thoughts he had and everything he did were not for anyone else's understanding. After the dried corpse turned into ashes, there was something inside its body that was not destroyed. Ning Fan seized it. It was a flesh pearl that was the size of an egg. On the flesh pearl, there were dozens of silk-like tentacles. Each of the tentacles was 3 chi long. When this flesh pearl lived in the dried corpse's body, it could use its tentacles to control the flesh and blood of the dried corpse. It was the ant seed that the ant lord left in each dried corpse. This disgusting thing was a great tonic after consuming it. It could even increase the purity of one's magic power. Ning Fan passed the ant seed to the sludge monster. Immediately, the sludge monster happily cooked this delicious ant seed for Ning Fan. When he smelled the fishy smell of the meat soup coming from the pot, Ning Fan felt nauseous. A flesh pearl that had lived in a dried corpse for countless years. Is the soup cooked with this thing really drinkable? It seems a little disgusting, however. If it can really increase the purity of one's magic power, there's nothing I can do even if it's a little disgusting. Eventually, Ning Fan finished half of the pot of meat soup. The purity of his magic power had indeed increased by a lot. At least, his disgust was not in vain. The sludge monster's mouth was crooked from laughing. Perhaps it was unwilling to accompany Ning Fan to cultivate. When it saw Ning Fan's defeated expression, it felt a sense of joy. All 48,000 mud pores on its body relaxed as if it was bathing in the spring breeze. Miss, do you want to have a taste too? After all, this is the soup that you've painstakingly cooked. You can't let me take all of it. There was still half a pot of meat soup left. Ning Fan originally planned to finish it all, but he suddenly felt that it would be inappropriate if he did not leave some for the sludge monster. See it? No need, no need. Just drink it all. You have to eat that meatball as well. Not a single drop of juice must be left. Sigh, why did you vomit? Even if this meatball has the same taste as the rice field, you can't waste food. Come, let me feed you. Open your mouth. Eventually, the entire pot of soup went into Ning Fan's stomach. Even the meatball that had the taste of feces was forcefully fed into Ning Fan's stomach by the sludge monster. The ant seed did not need to be eaten when cooking the soup because its taste was too stimulating. The sludge monster was purposely making fun of Ning Fan. The more Ning Fan suffered, the happier she would be. Ning Fan could see through the sludge monster's thoughts. However, he was too lazy to argue with her. The ant seed was indeed unpalatable. However, it was not like Ning Fan had never eaten something that tasted even worse. Moreover, after the ant seed was cooked into meatballs, its medicinal effect was much stronger than the simple meat soup. If he ate the ant seed, the purity of his magic power would be greatly increased. Why not? As for the sludge monster's smugness, don't you think that this sludge monster whose body was roasted and dried up is very cute? Ning Fan admired the sludge monster with his eyes as if he was looking at a pet. He had tamed many pets in his life. There was a sable, a black cat, a sparrow, a tortoise, a heavenly dog, and a pig. He was quite cold-blooded when he killed people. However, perhaps even he himself did not realize that he had a certain degree of tolerance towards strange creatures. Being stared at by Ning Fan's scorching eyes, the sludge monster suddenly felt uncomfortable. She was a little nervous. She felt that her beauty was being coveted by Ning Fan. This is not good. Very bad. She had already turned into mud and concealed her human body. Why is there still someone who covets her beauty? She has already turned into a pile of mud. Why are there still men in this world who are unwilling to let her go? Why is there a terrifying man in this world who can even harden himself to mud? I'm warning you. If you dare to touch me, I will kill myself in front of you. What kind of threat is this? It's so infuriating. Ning Fan smiled again. He felt that adopting this sludge monster as a pet would be a joyful thing. It could relieve his boredom. He was thinking that if he makes a deal with the omniscient old man, he would be very willing to sell this sludge monster to him for a few more experiments. However, the smile on his face soon disappeared. It was because more dried corpses were attracted to the formation. What kind of experience was it to be surrounded by 60 to 70 dried corpses which had the strength of an ancient immortal venerable? The sludge monster felt her scalp go numb. All of her techniques were only effective against living beings. The damage she could inflict on inanimate objects was extremely low. If she is alone, she would certainly die when facing so many immortal venerable dried corpses. She almost wanted to abandon Ning Fan and run away alone. However, she was afraid that the omniscient old man would blame her later. Let's run together. You can't handle so many dried corpses. Why? Are you crazy? The sludge monster's expression changed drastically. Under her astonished gaze, Ning Fan directly flew towards the group of dried corpses. Even if the enemies were really 60 to 70 ancient immortal venerables, Ning Fan would not be afraid. In the past, he had fought against the Realm River and challenged the Dark Race all by himself. He had experienced all kinds of situations. Moreover, these dried corpses only had the strength of an immortal venerable, but they did not have the spiritual wisdom of an immortal venerable or the magic techniques of an immortal venerable. Their corpses were extremely fragile and would shatter in a single blow. Even if there were 60 to 70 of such immortal venerable dried corpses, Ning Fan would not find it difficult to deal with them. He swung the ocean-defying sword continuously. Each of the dried corpses was turned into ashes by Ning Fan, allowing them to rest in peace. As for Ning Fan, he easily obtained a large number of ant seeds. Continue cooking the soup. When Ning Fan threw a large pile of ant seeds in front of the sludge monster, she could not help but swallow her saliva. My goodness! This fool is actually so powerful. With this fool protecting me, it seems like I don't need to worry about my safety on the 12th floor at all. If that's the case, it seems like I can make use of this fool to do some things. Chapter 1196. According to her, the meat soup brewed by immortal venerable ants could greatly increase the purity of magic power of immortal venerables and immortal kings. However, it did not improve the magic power of immortal emperors. The current purity of Ning Fan's magic power was only at the 4th tribulation immortal king realm. Therefore, the effect of the soup was quite obvious. An ordinary immortal king could purify their magic power to around 10th tribulation immortal king realm by consuming a pot of the soup. Ning Fan had the refinement art. When he circulated the art and refined the soup, the medicinal effect of the soup was perfectly absorbed by him without any waste. The effect of consuming a pot of soup was more than 3 times that of an ordinary person. It could purify 30 to 40 tribulations of magic power. In the end, Ning Fan finished 60 to 70 pots of soup. No matter how many times he drank it, he could not get used to the taste of the soup. Every time he drank it, he would feel like vomiting. Ning Fan's dissatisfaction was the same as the monster's satisfaction. When she saw Ning Fan's frustrated expression again and again, a smile bloomed on her face. Her pair of big and cute eyes were as bright as the red sun in the morning on a snowy night. The more she cooked the soup, the happier she felt. Just as she was about to cook a few more pots of soup to disgust Ning Fan, she suddenly had a bad feeling. The ants that were used to cook the soup were all used up. Oh my God! What did she do? Those were nearly 70 immortal venerable ants. Just now, she was only focused on bullying Ning Fan. She actually got carried away and forgot her sense of propriety. Within a day, she fed him nearly 70 bowls of the soup. The ants were too nutritious. How could he eat them like that? If I overdo it, it will be a big problem. Ning Fan's small body was obviously weak. The result of not being nourished was that his primordial spirit would swell, his immortal veins would be in disorder, and his magic power would be out of balance. In serious cases, his foundation would be damaged and his bones and blood would be damaged. In the worst cases, his blood and chi would flow in reverse and his body would explode. This time, things had gone too far. Ning Fan, this weak chicken, was probably going to die because of her nourishment. Even though she wanted to push Ning Fan away, she did not plan to kill him because she would definitely be severely punished by her master if she did that. Her ending would be very, very miserable. Little fool, ah no, brother Ning, this little sister has something to tell you. Already eaten all of the nearly 70 ant species that you hunted. The sludge monster started to feel scared, and his voice was trembling a little. Had the ant seeds been used up? After killing the previous batch of corpse slaves, there seemed to be no more corpse slaves in the surroundings. After such a long time, no more corpse slaves were attracted over. Perhaps we should change our location. The aura of resentment was the heaviest in the northwest, and one could see the ghostly clouds of resentment in that direction with the naked eye. There must be quite a number of corpse slaves over there. Let's go there and have a look, Ning Fan said with a smile. Eating ants could greatly increase the purity of his magic power, so he was naturally in a good mood. After drinking nearly 70 bowls of ant soup, Ning Fan had purified the magic power of over 2,400 tribulations. In addition to the results of his previous cultivation, a quarter of the magic power in his body had already been purified to the 5th tribulation Immortal King realm. If he has enough ant seeds, Ning Fan was confident that he could raise the purity of all his magic power within a short period of time and officially attain the 5th tribulation realm. It's better not to hunt any more ants today, the sludge monster said hesitantly. But could it be that something will happen if we hunt too many corpse slaves in one go? Your worry isn't without reason. This is the 12th level of the Earth Abyss, the deepest part of the light ant's nest. If we hunt too many ants, it's highly likely that we'll be discovered by them. However, in this world, the effort and the reward are always proportional. As long as we can quickly increase the purity of our magic power, it's all right to take some risks. It's not this reason. The sludge monster covered her face with her small hands and choked speechlessly. How was she going to explain to Ning Fan about the sins that she had committed? Then what's the reason? Ning Fan suddenly felt that his dantian was getting hotter and hotter. When he first drank the ant seed soup, his body did indeed feel hot. However, he did not pay much attention to it. After all, it was just soup. Of course, his body would feel warm after drinking it. However, when he calmed down, he felt that something was wrong. A small tent in a certain part of his body began to bulge. What made him lose his composure was that his nose felt hot and he almost had a nosebleed. Hot. Very hot. This wave of heat gave him a strong desire. He needed to release it immediately. Otherwise, his blood essence would flow in reverse and rush to his head, damaging his foundation. You didn't seem to have told me that eating too many ants will have such a side effect. Ning Fan stared at the sludge monster with scorching eyes. This kind of scorching feeling was just a natural reaction of his body at the moment. He did not really have any intentions towards the sludge monster. However, the sludge monster did not think so. She could see it. Ning Fan had eaten too much and he wanted to release himself from his woman. All of a sudden, hundreds of miserable scenes flashed through her mind. She was retaliated against by Ning Fan. She was pressed on the ground and had sex with Ning Fan. She was hung up by Ning Fan. She was boiled into soup by Ning Fan. She was, My magic power is tens of times purer than yours. If you dare to touch me, I will burn you to death with my magic power. You can't touch me. Really? The sludge monster retreated in fear. She was really afraid that Ning Fan would go crazy and not let go of a lump of mud like her. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. I see. No wonder this sludge monster tried to entice him to touch her head as soon as she saw me. It turns out that she wanted to use the moment their bodies touched to burn me with the purity of her magic power and plot against me. No wonder he felt an inexplicable sense of danger at that time. This sludge monster is indeed not as simple as it looks. You are thinking too much. Even if I want someone to release my fire, I won't look for a lump of mud. Ning Fan secretly circulated the yin-yang transformation. He realized that even the yin-yang transformation could not suppress the evil fire in his body. Once again, he was surprised by the medicinal power of the ants. It seems like I need to return to the profound yin world and look for his human cauldrons to save my life. Damn it! How dare you look down on mud? What's wrong with mud? How did mud offend you? Without us mud, how can you have white spiritual herbs and immortal herbs to eat? If there is no mud in the world, the cultivation civilization will fall back by 500 eras. Ah no, it will fall back by 1,000 eras. The sludge monsters chattered non-stop. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was too lazy to listen to the sludge monster's long-winded speech. I'm sorry. I need to go and release my fire to save my life. Otherwise, if my blood and chi really go against the flow, things will really get out of hand. Wait for me here. I will be back soon. As soon as he finished speaking, he went into the profound Een world. There were plenty of human cauldrons there that could save his life. Wait, where are you going? You can't just leave me here alone. How long will it take for me to return? How long do I have to wait for you here? Damn it. Damn it. You are having fun in the world of the world treasure, but I am waiting for you to come back in the wind and fire. At least bring me into your world treasure to cool down for a while. The sludge monster replenished its water to avoid being roasted by the flaming earth into dried mud. At the same time, it kept chattering with deep resentment. The aftereffects of nearly 70 ants were too great. Ning Fan used 3 whole days to get rid of all of them. 3 days later, Ning Fan returned to the outside world from the profound Een world. At first, he thought that the sludge monster would wait for him outside obediently. Unfortunately, he was wrong. When he looked around, there was no sign of the sludge monster at all. Did she go back alone? This is going to be troublesome. I have already memorized the formation incantation to capture corpse demons in this place. Even if I am the only one left, I can still hunt the ants. However, the medicinal power of the ants is too strong. I can't eat them raw. I have to process them. The method to brew the meat soup might seem simple, but it is actually extremely complicated. Without that lump of mud, I can't brew the meat soup anymore. Ning Fan felt a little helpless. Ning Fan felt slightly helpless. It seemed like it was necessary for him to teleport back and bring the sludge monster here. Suddenly, Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, a strand of green hair fluttered in the wind from afar and flew towards Ning Fan's hand. This is the lost ancient demon technique, the green hair life-seeking technique. He had only seen this ancient technique in ancient records by chance in the past. However, he did not expect that such a miraculous technique actually existed in this world. According to the legends, the ancient demons who knew this technique could ignore the world plane and distance and ask for help from the person they want to see no matter where they are trapped in or how isolated they are. Then, the question was, who was using this ancient technique to ask him for help? Even though the green hair life-seeking technique was miraculous, it could not transmit words. No one could judge what the owner of the green hair had experienced and why she needed to ask for help just by looking at it. Ning Fan sniffed the scent of the green hair. There was an extremely faint fragrance on it. It was not the scent of makeup or rouge. Instead, it was an extremely fresh and earthy scent, like the smell of a drizzle in an empty mountain. It's that lump of mud. She is in danger, Ning Fan frowned. He initially thought that the sludge monster had already returned to the 6th level 3 days ago. However, it turned out that it was not the case. She seemed to be in trouble on the 12th level. That sludge monster was not weak. However, it was still a distance away from the quasi-saint realm. Unfortunately, this place was the deepest part of the light ant clan's nest. It was not strange for a quasi-saint light ant to appear here. It's possible that little mud monster is in danger here. Of course, it's also possible that she is just scheming or playing tricks on me like before. After the green hair found Ning Fan, it flew towards the direction where it came from with the wind. The direction it was pointing to was the direction where the sludge monster was currently at. Ning Fan was a little hesitant about whether he should go and save the sludge monster or not. He was not afraid of the dangers of this place. He was just worried that this was another trick of the sludge monster. Just as he was hesitating, the fluttering green hair was suddenly burned into ashes by a demonic light that came from the end of heaven and earth. Now, there was no need for him to hesitate anymore. Since the green hair had been destroyed by someone, it was impossible for Ning Fan to find the sludge monster by following the green hair. In the 12th level of the Earth Abyss, the suppression on spirit sense was even greater. In this place, he could not use any sensing methods at all. Trying to find the sludge monster in the vast 12th level was no different from a fantasy. Who did this? Show yourself. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly cold. His aura force swept across the area. Suddenly, the space in a certain place in the sky cracked. A silver-armored burly man was caught off guard and fell out of the crack. His face was filled with gloom. This silver-armored burly man was actually a quasi-saint realm expert with 11,000 tribulations of magic power. However, he was not a true quasi-saint realm expert. Instead, he was the result of the fusion of several powerful light ants. He was a pseudo-quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan recognized this person's appearance. In the past, he had worked together with omniscient old man to destroy the nest of an ant lord. This silver-armored burly man in front of him was the quasi-saint realm expert whom Ning Fan had fought that day. Ning Fan failed to kill this person that day and he managed to escape. However, he did not expect this person to appear in front of him again at this time and place. Enemies are really bound to meet on a narrow road. It's actually you. Looks like that sludge monster did not lie. Someone has really invaded my light ant territory. However, I didn't expect that the intruder would be you. The wound that you left on me at that time is still aching until today. Since I've met you, I might as well put an end to the enmity of that day. As soon as the silver-armored quasi-saint saw that the intruder was Ning Fan, his eyes immediately turned ferocious. His hatred was monstrous. Of course, within that hatred, there was also a hint of fear towards Ning Fan. That day when he fought against Ning Fan in the Antlord's nest, he was not Ning Fan's match at all because Ning Fan's Yin-Yang sect protecting sword was too powerful. Ning Fan's figure that looked down upon the world with a single sword had left a deep shadow in his heart. Luckily, he remembered that even though Ning Fan had defeated him at that time, he had also broken his high-grade innate treasure sword during the battle. That day, I fled back to the 12th floor in a sorry state. My injuries were already on the verge of death. Fortunately, Great Priestess Yin Mu used her primordial essence to heal me. My injuries only took a few days to fully recover. Moreover, the Great Priestess gave me a treasure and ordered me to use it to take revenge. I must kill the madman who destroyed Empress Mother's nest. My current strength is much stronger than before. As for this young man, his high-grade innate treasure sword is broken and his strength has declined greatly. That day, he only won against me by relying on the advantage of his magic treasure. Today, I will crush this young man with absolute strength and avenge my humiliation. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint's heart was filled with absolute confidence. He did not say anything else. The silver-armored quasi-saint landed on the ground. His entire body turned into a silver giant of light. Stepping on the flaming ground, he charged at Ning Fan. We've only just met and he's already activated his immemorial true body? Last time, he was forced to activate his immemorial true body after fighting to the very end. It seems that the immemorial true body has become very unstable due to the fusion of so many experts. I didn't expect his eternal true body to become so much more stable after just a few days. Ning Fan's expression turned slightly solemn. After the silver-armored quasi-saint activated his eternal true body, the chi of his magic power rose to the tribulation level of 12,000. Upon seeing this, Ning Fan also shook his body and turned into a giant body made of golden flames. His magic power also skyrocketed, increasing from 14,800 tribulation to 15,800 tribulation. The purity of Ning Fan's magic power was not high. However, the silver-armored quasi-saint was also just a fusion body. His magic power's purity was not high. In that case, Ning Fan's magic power had an absolute advantage when facing this false quasi-saint. Even without the Yin and Yang sect protecting sword, he was still not afraid of him. Rumble died in just a short moment. The golden flame giant and the silver-armored quasi-saint had already exchanged hundreds of blows. The latter was obviously at a disadvantage. The situation on the battlefield was beyond the silver-armored quasi-saint's expectation. With the help of the Great Priestess Yin Mother, his eternal true body had become much more stable. Initially, he thought that he could reduce the gap between his cultivation base and Ning Fan's after his strength improved. However, he did not expect that the gap between their cultivation bases had actually widened again when they met again. Impossible. The last time we met, this young man's magic power was just 14,200 tribulations. Why did his magic power increase to 600 tribulations in less than 2 months? How could there be such a monstrous genius in this world who could improve his cultivation base so much in such a short period of time? Could it be that the omniscient old lunatic had helped him? Could the research of that old lunatic really be able to improve one's strength? The more the silver-armored quasi-saint fought, the more astonished he became. At first, he thought that Ning Fan's strength would be greatly reduced after losing his high-grade innate magic treasure. However, he did not expect that Ning Fan could still beat him to a pulp with his bare hands without using any magic treasures. What kind of halo is that crisscrossing cross? What kind of divine ability is that body technique that can allow him to launch consecutive attacks? Last time, Ning Fan had the Yin and Yang sect protecting sword in his hand. He did not need to use any other divine abilities and he could easily defeat the silver-armored quasi-saint. This time, however, it was different. Even if the silver-armored quasi-saint was not a true quasi-saint, he was still not someone to be underestimated. Ning Fan did not dare to underestimate his opponent. Thus, he immediately used his trump card, the Cross Halo and the Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. The Cross Halo emitted a dazzling black light. Under the effect of this halo, Ning Fan's magic power was endless. His attacks were also big and powerful. The silver-armored quasi-saint found it hard to endure such a method of fighting without caring about the consumption of magic power. Ning Fan's fists were even more powerful. The momentum of his fists were connected and each punch was stronger than the previous one. Under the storm-like attacks, the silver-armored quasi-saint could only defend himself. How could he have the strength to fight back? What kind of joke is this? This young man can actually still be so strong without his high-grade innate magic treasure. Even in the Light Ant clan, this kind of strength is already enough for him to be ranked in the top 5. There is no way I can defeat him. Heaven battling Jade Umbrella, protect me quickly. Fortunately, the silver-armored quasi-saint had the magic treasure given to him by the high priest to protect himself this time. As soon as they exchanged blows, he was already stunned by Ning Fan's attacks. How would he dare to hold back anymore? At once, he spat out a ray of green light which turned into a large green umbrella that glowed with jade light. It was a mid-grade innate magic treasure which was used to protect one's life. As soon as the umbrella was opened, jade light that looked like tassels poured down from the sky like the Milky Way, enveloping the silver-armored quasi-saint. This umbrella's light was really impressive. Under the protection of the umbrella's light, the physical body of the silver-armored quasi-saint actually became stronger by more than 10%. This umbrella's light seemed to be able to strengthen its owner's physical body. Moreover, this kind of strengthening was not only in the area of defense but also in the area of physical attacks. With the help of this umbrella, the silver-armored quasi-saint obviously had a much easier time fighting against Ning Fan. Unfortunately, he only managed to relax for a short while. Not long after, he was no longer able to defeat Ning Fan. 10% of his physical body's strength only allowed him to temporarily take a breather against Ning Fan's torrential attacks. As the number of consecutive hits increased, Ning Fan's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. When the silver-armored quasi-saint only managed to hit 6,000 consecutive hits, he could no longer hold on. He was a quasi-saint realm expert who used the secret technique of the Light Ant clan to fuse with his body. This kind of fusion was very unstable. At this moment, the silver-armored quasi-saint could no longer withstand the force of Ning Fan's punches. The fusion in his body immediately showed signs of collapsing. This shocked and terrified the silver-armored quasi-saint. He could not even defeat Ning Fan with his cultivation base at the quasi-saint realm. If he separates himself from his body and reverts to his true form, the few immortal emperors and half-step saints in his true form would probably not be a match for Ning Fan. It seems like I can't take revenge anymore. What I need to do now is to use a secret technique to escape from Ning Fan's hands like I did last time. Immortal Ant-Evasion Technique. CTAS. An air-piercing sound echoed in the air. The silver-armored quasi-saint who was fighting against Ning Fan directly vanished from Ning Fan's sight without any warning. In just an instant, he flew a distance of a few flaming continents. Knowing that he was no match for Ning Fan, he wanted to run away. Ning Fan's expression immediately turned slightly unpleasant. The immortal ant-evasion technique was not the fastest evasion technique in the world. However, it was definitely one of the fastest evasion techniques in the world. As everyone knew, low-grade techniques such as teleportation and teleportation while high-grade techniques such as the various grade evasion techniques required a process of charging up. All of them needed to activate their magic power before they could move. Even if Ning Fan's speed was heaven-defying, he still needed to shake his body or take a few steps before he wanted to move. There must be a process involved. No matter how short the process would be, it must exist. However, the immortal ant-evasion technique that the silver-armored quasi-saint used completely ignored this common sense. The activation of this technique came without any signs. It did not require any movement or even the activation of magic power. With just a thought, the user would already be able to fly beyond the 9 heavens. There was no need for him to even take a single step. Previously, the silver-armored quasi-saint had used this kind of rare escape technique to escape from Ning Fan's hands. This time, he used the same trick again and successfully escaped from Ning Fan's sight. This made Ning Fan very displeased. He had already secretly taken precautions against the silver-armored quasi-saint escaping, but he still failed to do so. Could it be that I can only block this technique by sealing the heavens and locking the earth in advance? Unfortunately, the encounter with the silver-armored quasi-saint this time was too hasty. Ning Fan did not have the chance to seal the heavens and lock the earth at all. How can it be so easy to escape from my hands? Last time, the nest of the Ant Lord exploded. I couldn't even protect myself. That's why I couldn't catch you and let you escape. This time, it's different. You can take the first step, but don't think about taking the second step. Ning Fan took a step forward and disappeared from heaven and earth. Almost at the same time, the silver-armored quasi-saint who was running for his life a few continents away suddenly felt a sharp pain on his body. He crashed into a wall. The wall in front of him was a ferocious giant made of golden flames. Ning Fan's speed was just too fast. Even though he was one step slower than the silver-armored quasi-saint, he still managed to catch up to him easily with his second step. I'm only going to ask you once. Where is that lump of mud now? Ning Fan's true body said ruthlessly. What kind of identity do I have to answer you? If you want to know the whereabouts of the mud demon, then exchange it with your life. The immortal ant-evasion technique, 9 consecutive steps. Without any warning, the silver-armored quasi-saint disappeared from Ning Fan's sight once again. At the same time, 9 consecutive air-piercing sounds could be heard. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint did not care about the price he had to pay. He instantly activated the immortal ant-evasion technique 9 times and teleported 9 times. Even though this technique did not require any starting speed, it placed a huge burden on the body. 9 steps using the immortal ant-evasion technique was the limit of a silver-armored quasi-saint. After taking 9 consecutive steps, the silver-armored quasi-saint disappeared even faster and further away, causing Ning Fan's heaven-sealing technique to miss its target. Even if the heaven-sealing technique could be used as fast as lightning, it would still require some time to act. However, the immortal ant-evasion technique did not require any starting speed at all. It was not something that the heaven-sealing technique could fix. Ancient Demon Flash Technique. I didn't expect to see 2 lost ancient demon abilities in just one day. Unfortunately, you still can't escape. Ning Fan took a step forward and blocked the path of the silver-armored quasi-saint once again. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint finally felt astonished. Even though he was just a pseudo-quasi-saint, his speed was definitely not slow. Even if the speed of a single step was not as fast as a true quasi-saint, it was not much slower. When he took 9 steps, his speed would definitely surpass that of an ordinary quasi-saint. However, even though his speed was comparable to a quasi-saint, Ning Fan easily caught up with him with just a single step. Moreover, Ning Fan still needed some time to charge up his strength. What a great blow it was! His fastest speed that he could ignore was actually no match for Ning Fan's casual step. Who exactly are you? With so many heaven-defying abilities, it's impossible for you to be a nobody in this age of Dharma decline. Why have I never heard of you before? See, as soon as he spoke, the silver-armored quasi-saint used the same trick again, trying to escape from Ning Fan's sight. However, this time, the immortal ant-evasion technique that had always been successful failed. He was actually stopped by Ning Fan's heaven-sealing technique. Impossible! My evasion technique doesn't need any starting point. It will always be faster than your imitating reincarnation technique. How can I possibly be stopped by you? The silver-armored quasi-saint could no longer maintain his composure. His expression changed drastically. With the difference in magic power between him and Ning Fan, he would need at least one breath to break free from Ning Fan's heaven-sealing technique. This one breath was enough for Ning Fan to throw 100 punches at him. Ning Fan, of course, would not waste this precious time to explain to his enemy. The speed of the heaven-sealing technique is slower than the immortal ant-evasion technique? So what? I just need to predict the direction you are going to escape to and attack in advance. Be it the Light Ant Clan's fusion technique or this seemingly heaven-defying immortal ant-evasion technique, there was no such thing as a flawless technique in this world. See defying sword appear. The sword light that was filled with the chi of ocean waves whizzed past and penetrated the body of the silver-armored quasi-saint. One breath's time was up. The silver-armored quasi-saint regained his ability to move. However, he was coughing out blood profusely. He was severely injured. The power of the heavenly Magatama kept exploding inside his body, severely injuring his internal organs and making him suffer unbearable pain. After all, he was a pseudo-quasi-saint. Besides, he had the heaven-battling Jade Umbrella to enhance his offense and defense. Thus, it was impossible for him to be killed by the sea-defying sword. However, this sword attack had seriously injured him. He was afraid. He tried to flee again in panic and used 9 consecutive steps. However, he was stopped by Ning Fan at another fiery continent. Another sword strike penetrated his physical body. His injuries were even worse. The silver-armored quasi-saint tried to flee again. Ning Fan chased after him and slashed at him again. The silver-armored quasi-saint wanted to send a message to ask for help. However, his voice and spirit sense were all blocked by Ning Fan. Even the fluctuations of his attacks were perfectly concealed by Ning Fan. Ning Fan would never forget where he was. This place was the deepest part of the Light Ant Clan's nest, the 12th level of the Earth Abyss. If he does not restrict the movements in this place, it would be hard to guarantee that other experts of the Light Ant Clan would come to his aid. By then, he would not be able to kill this person with absolute certainty. A quasi-saint was extremely difficult to kill. Even a pseudo-quasi-saint would not be that easy to kill. After chasing after him for 1 hour, the silver-armored quasi-saint had been slashed by Ning Fan thousands of times. There was not a single part of his body that was left unscathed. He was finally unable to maintain the light ant fusion. After the fusion and separation, his body exploded and turned into several dying immortal emperors and half-saints of the light ant race. We can't fight this person head-on. Let's split up and run. The experts of the Light Ant Clan had a beautiful plan. Unfortunately, even when they fused together, they were still being toyed with by Ning Fan. Now that they were separated, how could they possibly escape from under Ning Fan's nose? With just a single immemorial rainy night illusory technique, Ning Fan had pulled all of the experts of the Light Ant Clan into his illusory world and killed them. If they fused together, they would have the strength of a quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan would have to spend some effort to deal with them. If they are separated, he would just end up killing them one by one. In the illusory world of the ancient rainy night, Ning Fan had already interrogated a few experts of the Light Ant Clan and found out the whole story of how the sludge monster was captured. That lump of mud was really taken away. The kindness of a meal must be repaid, and the grievances of a small grudge must be avenged. This sludge monster had made nearly 70 bowls of meat soup for him. He couldn't just watch it die. He still wanted to subdue this pet. The moment the silver-armored quasi-sage was killed, the entire light ant tribe was shaken. When the life tablets of the few light ant experts who had fused with the silver-armored quasi-sage shattered at the same time, none of the light ant experts could remain calm. Even the powerful second-tier quasi-sage Mother Een High Priestess was so shocked that her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. Who was it that actually dared to kill all of the ant tribe? Who could kill a fusion realm quasi-sage of the light ant tribe? The dignity of the holy ant sect cannot be violated. The culprit was still on the 12th floor. It seemed that he was the accomplice of the sludge demon. Pass down my order. The 4 lineages of the holy ant sect are to temporarily put aside their grudges. Apart from the candidate for the queen, everyone else is to come out and hunt down the red-named maniac. The light ant clan was in the midst of the ant queen election. As a candidate for the ant queen, the high priestess of Mother Een had to prepare for the battle for the ant queen. She couldn't be distracted to catch the culprit. However, it did not mean that she would allow him to do whatever he wanted on the 12th floor. Ant art, red name art of heaven's will. High Priest Mother Een did not hesitate to pay a small price to use this divine art. She kept forming hand seals with her 10 slender fingers, leaving afterimages in the air. At the same time, Ning Fan, who was at a great distance away, suddenly felt a gaze coming from the sky just as he withdrew his eternal true body. His expression changed. Countless rays of red light appeared out of thin air and converged 3 feet above his head, forming 3 large blood-red characters. Merciless killing. The 3 blood-red words were born from heaven and earth. Ning Fan could not erase them no matter what methods he used. As long as the 3 blood-red words were hanging above his head, Ning Fan felt that he was always being targeted by the light ant tribe. From afar, there seemed to be an endless stream of experts of the light ant tribe following the guidance of the 3 blood-red words and charging towards Ning Fan. It was not just the experts of the light ant tribe who were attracted by the 3 blood-red words. As far as his eyes could see, the ground of the fiery land would crack open from time to time and endless corpse slaves would emerge from the ground. Their killing intent directly locked onto Ning Fan from a great distance away. The 3 blood-red words above Ning Fan's head were like the brightest stars in the vast starry sky. Anyone could find him, but he could not use his spirit sense and rain technique to sense the danger in the distance in this 12th level of the Earth Abyss. It seems like the matter of me killing a silver-armored quasi-sage has really enraged the powerful existence of the light ant tribe. Their strength is far above mine. Therefore, if I don't have any special methods, I won't be able to remove the blood-red words above my head at all. An endless pursuit is coming soon. It seems like I can no longer cultivate in the 12th level of the Earth Abyss in a low-profile manner. Ning Fan sighed. Can't this little mud wait for me to complete my magic power purification before creating trouble for me? Since I can't keep a low profile, I'll just make a big scene. Little friend Ning, why are you here? Suddenly, a voice came from afar and flew over. It was the voice of the quasi-sage of the 4-fish sect, Old Ancestor Lei Zhe. It turned out that after Old Ancestor Lei Zhe entered the Guangzhou Earth Abyss that day, he had searched every level to search for Bei Xiaomen. However, he could not find her whereabouts or Ning Fan. He had searched all the way to the 12th level, but he still could not find any trace of Bei Xiaomen. However, it was not surprising. Bei Xiaoman had gone to the omniscient old man's secret research base to cause trouble. How could he find her? It was imaginable how much pressure Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was under during these days. Bei Xiaoman held a very special meaning to the entire northern heaven. If she dies in the Earth Abyss, many people would be secretly happy, but it would also give many old monsters in the northern heaven, including Old Ancestor Lei Zhe, a headache. Bei Xiaoman must not die. He must save this little girl. For the survival of the northern heaven. But, where is Bei Xiaoman? Old Ancestor Lei Zhe had been searching for her for almost 2 months, but he still could not find her whereabouts. Unexpectedly, he met Ning Fan in the 12th level. When the blood-red words appeared above Ning Fan's head, a blood-red light shot up to the sky. Since he was the closest to Ning Fan, he was the first one to arrive. Initially, he thought he could find some clues about Bei Xiaoman by following the blood-red light. Unexpectedly, he met Ning Fan in the 12th level. "Senior Lei Zhe, why are you here?" Ning Fan was also surprised. He also did not expect to meet Lei Zhe on the 12th floor. "Sigh, it's a long story. It's all because of a certain stinky girl. I couldn't find her no matter how hard I tried. However, her identity was special, so this old man had no choice but to look for her." The bloody words on your head, could it be? Just as the Luai's patriarch was sighing, his expression changed drastically. He seemed to be a little slow. His reaction arc seemed to be a little too long. Why did he just realize that there were such terrifying bloody words above Ning Fan's head? This was the sacred ant sect's blood-written bounty. Just what was this kid doing on the 12th level of the Earth Abyss? Could it be that he was openly declaring war against a colossus like the Holy Ant Sect? Was he crazy? Didn't they know that even a quasi-sage like him had to lower his head and compromise with the Holy Ant Sect? That was an existence that even the entire Light Clan could not deal with. What on earth had this kid done? The sluggish Lei Zhe patriarch finally noticed the corpses nearby. They were the corpses of a few light ant races' immortal emperors and half-saints. These corpses showed signs of fusing with each other before they died. You killed a fusion stage quasi-sage of the Holy Ant Sect. You actually killed a fusion stage quasi-sage of the Holy Ant Sect. That's a quasi-sage. The Luai's patriarch's face turned pale with fright. This time, Ning Fan was really going to pierce through the sky. If this matter is not handled well, not only will he and Ning Fan not be able to walk out of the Earth Abyss alive, but the entire northern heaven will also face a great calamity. Chapter 1197. Ning Fan was not concerned about old ancestor Lei Zhe's shock. He had done many lawless things in the past. Offending the Holy Ant Sect was a little troublesome, but it wasn't a big deal. It took him a lot of effort to get rid of the silver-armored quasi-saint. He did not even have the time to collect his spoils of war. The experts of the Light Ant clan who had fused with a quasi-saint were all killed by the illusion. The Light Ant was a member of the Dao Hun clan. Instead of cultivating their demon souls, they cultivated their Dao souls. When these experts died, Ning Fan kept their Dao souls into the divine refining cauldron and refined them into 10,000 spirit blood, becoming his first spoils of war. The second spoil of war was an immortal emperor-level light ant inner core. After a light ant dies, it would not produce a Dao fruit. Instead, it would produce an inner core. The probability of producing an inner core was extremely low. If he could obtain an immortal emperor's inner core, Ning Fan's cultivation base would improve significantly. The third reward was the mid-grade Khanate magic treasure, the Heaven Battle Jade Umbrella. He already had a lot of mid-grade innate magical treasures, so he wasn't too excited when he obtained this treasure. He bent his palm and grabbed the heaven-defying Jade Umbrella from the side of one of the light ant corpses. He held it in his hand and carefully examined it. When he held the umbrella in his hand, a wave of rain intent immediately blew against his face, making him feel as if he was bathing in a cool breeze. When the umbrella was opened and slightly moved, immortal light turned into thousands of strands of silk ribbons, enveloping Ning Fan within the faint green light. After being enveloped by the green light, Ning Fan immediately felt that his physical body had become much stronger. His strength, agility, every aspect of his body had been enhanced by more than 10%. This umbrella seemed to be more practical than he had imagined. It was no wonder that the silver-armored quasi-saint was able to resist his ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike for a short period of time with this umbrella. Could this umbrella be the heaven-defying Jade Umbrella? Old ancestor Lei Zhe was astonished once again. It was different from when he heard that Ning Fan had pierced through the heavens. This time, he was not shocked but surprised. Does Senior recognize this umbrella? Ning Fan was surprised. The Luai's ancestral patriarch walked over and examined it carefully. After confirming that it was really the heaven-battling jade umbrella, he became even more excited. Of course I do. That's the treasure that the 8 children of the water sect used to attack the East Heaven ancestral emperor. However, as far as I know, the treasure was lost a long time ago. The water school has been searching for it this entire time, but who would have thought that it would be in the light ancestor Earth Abyss? The 8 children of the water sect besieged the Eastern Sky ancestor emperor? Oh, there seems to be such a thing. Ning Fan remembered that he had once met another reincarnation of Aphrodite in a secret place. That secret place was also the burial place of the 8 disciples of the water sect. The water sect's 8 children were elders of the same generation as the East Sky ancestor emperor. It was rumored that the water sect's 8 children had once joined hands to besiege the East Sky ancestor emperor and had ultimately won. Although this battle was a one-sided battle, it still caused the reputation of the water sect's 8 disciples to soar. However, there was one thing that puzzled Ning Fan. Judging from old ancestor Lei Zhe's tone, he seemed to hold this umbrella in high esteem. However, according to Ning Fan's observation, even though this umbrella was quite powerful, it did not seem to be heaven-defying enough to make a dignified quasi-saint realm expert lose his composure. Is this umbrella very powerful? Ning Fan asked. Amazing, of course it's amazing. This was a Rain Master's titled weapon. It is the dream treasure of all rain cultivators. Lei Zhe ancestor explained. Titled weapon? What's that? The so-called titled weapons are innate magic treasures that are refined using special materials and techniques. The difficulty of forging them is more than 10,000 times that of innate magic treasures of the same grade. Thus, their rarity is also more than 10,000 times that of ordinary innate magic treasures. When ordinary people use titled weapons, they can only display the basic properties of the titled weapons. Only cultivators with the corresponding titled weapons can activate the hidden properties of this treasure. Even though Ning Fan did not really understand it, he felt that this umbrella was very powerful. The water sect values this item very much. If little friend returns this item to them, they are even willing to give you 2, no, 3 mid-grade innate magic treasures of the same grade as them in return. Return? Why do I have to return it? Didn't Senior say that the difficulty of forging this umbrella is more than 10,000 times that of innate magic treasures of the same grade? It's too much of a waste to exchange such a rare treasure for a few ordinary mid-grade innate magic treasures. Ning Fan shook his head. When he looked at the heaven-battling jade umbrella again, his eyes were filled with a hint of seriousness. Since this umbrella is so precious, why do I have to return it to the water sect? I'm also a rain cultivator. Besides, my yin-yang rain technique is already half a step into the sovereign realm. It's just a matter of time before I reach the sovereign realm. If I have the time to cultivate the title of rain, Ning Fan would also be willing to cultivate the sovereign realm and the titled realm at the same time. If I really achieve the title of rain one day, I would then be qualified to use the hidden properties of this umbrella. Since this umbrella is so highly regarded by old ancestor Lei Zhe, the hidden properties of this umbrella might be extremely powerful. What? This heaven-battling jade umbrella has belonged to the water sect since ancient times. You actually didn't return it to them after obtaining it? If they find out about this, they won't let you go easily. Wouldn't it be fine as long as I don't let them know about it? This treasure has changed owners a few times and eventually, it fell into my hands. Since it's in my hands, it's mine. I'm willing to return this treasure to the water sect out of kindness. However, I'm not willing to return it because it's my duty. Could it be that after Senior kills people and snatches their treasures, you still have to investigate the origins of your spoils of war and return them to their rightful owners? I've never heard of any cultivators who are so kind in my entire life. Ning Fan said disapprovingly. What you said makes sense. But, it's still inappropriate. What if the water sect finds out about this? Even though the water sect isn't as strong as the Holy Ant sect or the Light Clan, it's still considered as one of the strongest forces in the Northern Heaven. You've already offended the Holy Ant sect. It's inappropriate to leave a hidden danger that might offend the water sect alive. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was really concerned about Ning Fan's situation. After all, Ning Fan was a member of the Black Devil sect. He was a branch of the Two Forms sect. He could not just ignore Ning Fan's safety. Ning Fan was too lazy to discuss this matter with Old Ancestor Lei Zhe anymore. Everything about Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was good except that he had a weak temper. He was afraid of the Purple Clan, the Holy Ant sect, and the Water sect. If he continues to cultivate the Tao, he would have to be afraid of everything instead. Wouldn't it be too meaningless to cultivate the Tao? Little friend, this umbrella should still be returned. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe still wanted to persuade Ning Fan. Suddenly, his wrinkled face trembled and his expression changed greatly. It turned out that while he was chatting with Ning Fan, many experts of the light ants and corpse slaves had already arrived in front of him by following the light of the blood-red characters above Ning Fan's head. The first one to arrive was a quasi-saint of the light ant clan who had 6 zhang-long light wings. He was not a fusion-stage quasi-saint. He was a genuine quasi-saint. His magic power had reached 13,000 tribulations. The sense of threat he gave Ning Fan was far greater than that of the silver-armored quasi-saint from before. Ning Fan could kill a fusion-stage quasi-saint like the silver-armored quasi-saint within an hour. However, it was impossible for him to kill a true quasi-saint within a short period of time. It's the general under Mother Yin, revered Eagle Yang. This person's strength is slightly weaker than mine. However, he is much stronger than those fusion-stage quasi-saints. Don't underestimate him. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe's expression changed. With just a few words, he exposed the identity of the newcomer. He seemed to be very familiar with the quasi-saint experts of the Light Ant clan. Humph! It turns out that fellow Taoist Lei Zhe is also here. Could it be that this matter is also related to you? Didn't you say that you came to the 12th floor just to look for someone? Why did you kill the disciples of my Holy Ant sect? Revered Eagle Yang shouted angrily. I'm just passing by. This matter has nothing to do with me, all right? Old Ancestor Lei Zhe wanted to cry but had no tears. Why did he come here to watch the show? Now, he was involved in the trouble that Ning Fan had caused. Even if he explains it to the Holy Ant sect, would they believe him? Besides, could he really watch Ning Fan being hunted by the Holy Ant sect alone without doing anything? No one knew how deep the Luai's ancestral patriarch's feelings for the Yin Yang sect were. Ning Fan was a member of the Black Devil sect. He was a branch of the Yin Yang sect. If Ning Fan is killed by the Holy Ant sect, the lineage of the Yin Yang sect would probably be cut off. This matter is indeed related to me. Isn't it just a fusion-stage quasi-saint? I've already killed him. What else can I do? At most, I'll give your Holy Ant sect some compensation. Then this matter will be resolved into nothing. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe actually did not deny his involvement. Instead, he took the initiative to bear part of the responsibility. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Of course, he could see that Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was worried that it would be too dangerous for him to face the Holy Ant sect alone. Thus, he wanted to accompany him to take the risk. He's really a good person. He's obviously afraid of the Holy Ant sect, but he still wants to face them together with me. However, this person's character is really too weak. The other party has already come to kill him, but he still wants to talk to him about resolving the matter into nothing. What's the point? Sure enough, the weak tone of Old Ancestor Lei Zhe did not calm revered Eagle Yang's killing intent. Instead, it made him even more arrogant. The death of a fusion-stage quasi-saint is indeed not a big deal. However, because of this matter, the dignity of my Holy Ant sect has been tarnished. All of you must pay with your lives. Revered Eagle Yang pressed a point of silver light on his fingertip. In an instant, the entire heaven and earth were dyed silver. A silver rift appeared on the ground and a gigantic corpse slave crawled out of the rift. That corpse slave was not an ordinary corpse slave. Instead, it was more like an amalgamation of countless corpse slaves. Its cultivation base had also reached the quasi-saint realm. Moreover, it seemed to have gained spiritual intelligence. The difficulty of dealing with it was no less than a true quasi-saint. From afar, There were other immortal venerables' corpse slaves rushing towards them. As soon as they arrived, they fused with the corpse slave's body, causing its cultivation base to continue to rise. It seemed like the more corpse slaves it fused with, the stronger it would become. Damn it! The Holy Ant sect has really gone mad. They even summoned their corpse slave king. Let's go! Revered Eagle Yang is still relatively easy to deal with, but this corpse slave king is one of the most terrifying beings. Even if I face this corpse slave king, I will probably be severely injured or even killed. Chi, how would old ancestor Lei Zhe dare to fight against the corpse slave king? He used his wind escape technique and brought Ning Fan away with him. They rode the tornado and fled a great distance away. Obviously, he did not want to fight with revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king. It was a wise decision. Revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king were not the only experts of the Light Ant clan. If they get entangled with them, the other experts of the Light Ant clan would arrive soon. By then, they would really be in danger. However, Ning Fan did not want to escape at all. He had no idea where his little mud was suffering. He still had to save it. How could he keep running away? He had already used an illusion technique to interrogate Little Mud's location. His top priority now was not to run away but to save Little Mud. However, if he continued to ask Little Mud to cook soup for him, the Holy Ant sect cannot be defeated by force. I will bring you all the way up and escape from the Earth Abyss. I really hope that we can escape from here. I haven't lived long enough. It would be a pity if I were to die with you. Inside the tornado, old ancestor Lei Zhe's face was as dark as still water. What Ning Fan was facing was the pursuit of the Holy Ant sect. The situation was much more serious than he imagined. In his opinion, the chances of Ning Fan leaving the Earth Abyss alive was close to zero. Even with his help, it would be difficult for Ning Fan to leave this place alive. Senior, don't be in a hurry to escape. I still have a place on the 12th floor that I want to go to. What? You're already in big trouble, yet you're not thinking about running for your life. Where do you think you're going? The Luai's patriarch's face turned green. He was unhappy, very unhappy. As the saying goes, the eunuchs are anxious when the emperor is not anxious. He was extremely worried about Ning Fan, but Ning Fan acted as if nothing had happened to him. How could he still want to stroll around the 12th floor? Wait a minute? Ning Fan is the emperor while he is a eunuch? This analogy is not good. It should be the other way around. It's the eunuchs who are anxious, but the emperor is not. There seems to be something wrong. I must go to this place. My pet is still in the hands of the Holy Ant sect. What? Your pet was captured by the Holy Ant sect? It's just a pet. It doesn't matter if I throw it away. As long as I can escape today, I'll just catch another one in the future. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was about to go crazy. Surely Ning Fan wouldn't risk the sacred ant sect's pursuit to save a pet, would he? Even if it was a joke, it shouldn't be like this. It will be difficult to meet such an interesting little mud in the future. I must save this little mud. Senior, don't worry, I don't fear the Holy Ant sect at all. According to the information I obtained from the interrogation using my illusion technique, the structure of the experts in the Holy Ant sect is very interesting. The strongest group of quasi-saints is actually all women. If they encounter me, I'm afraid those female quasi-saints will suffer a great loss. As for those male quasi-saints, none of them have magic power over 15,000 tribulations. They won't pose much of a threat to me. Ning Fan seemed to have obtained some kind of information which made him extremely confident in defeating the Holy Ant sect. Women? So what if they are women? As long as they are strong, they can't be underestimated. You might not have heard of the 4 beauties of the Holy Ant sect. Among the 4 beauties, even though the Empress Hua Hua is just a newly advanced quasi-saint, she is not to be underestimated. As for the great priestess Yin Mu, the great general Hong Lian and the dethroned Emperor Hua Shi, all of them are stronger than me. Especially the great priestess Yin Mu. I heard that she had obtained a great opportunity in recent years and advanced to the 2nd level quasi-saint realm. If it wasn't because of the battle against the Ant Queen, she alone would be enough to crush both of us. The scariest thing is that the motherfucker of the Holy Ant sect actually knows how to fuse. Do you know that when the Holy Ant calamity first appeared, the Light Clan had tried to eliminate the Holy Ant sect? However, after the quasi-saints of the Holy Ant sect fused with each other, they actually produced an ancient great cultivator, greatly damaging the Light Clan's vitality. In the end, they could only compromise with the Holy Ant sect. Oh! Ning Fan had already obtained all this information from the interrogation. Thus, he just gave a simple reply. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was even more devastated. He had said a long string of words, but Ning Fan only replied with a no. What does this feeling of punching a cotton ball mean? Old Ancestor Lei Zhe had made up his mind. No matter what, he would not accompany Ning Fan to the Holy Ant sect to save his pets. Even if he has to tie Ning Fan up, he would tie Ning Fan up and run for his life. Humph. A bunch of trash that only knows how to run. Unfortunately, you can't escape. No matter which direction you go, the experts of my Holy Ant sect will be waiting for you. Revered Eagle Yang sat cross-legged on the corpse slave king's giant shoulder and chased after Old Ancestor Lei Zhe and Ning Fan. Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was a cultivator with the Wind Count title. His speed was extremely fast. Revered Eagle Yang could not catch up with him no matter how hard he tried. Thus, he simply sat on the corpse slave king's shoulder and treated it as his mount to save some of his magic power. Then he slowly chased after Old Ancestor Lei Zhe and Old Ancestor Lei Zhe like a cat chasing after a mouse. After chasing for an unknown period of time, Revered Eagle Yang suddenly raised his brows and smiled. He could feel it. The reinforcements of the Holy Ant sect were right in front of them. Moreover, the ones blocking their way were the princess of the Holy Ant sect, Hua Hua, and her highness Hua Hua's Ant General, Ku Bixiong. Now, with him and the corpse slave king behind them and her highness Hua Hua and Ku Bixiong blocking their way in front of them, Lei Zhe and Old Ancestor Lei Zhe would not be able to escape even if they grow wings. However, didn't the great priest order that the candidate of the Ant Queen does not need to come personally? He didn't expect that her highness Hua Hua would actually show up personally to capture the criminals just to gain some merit points for the battle for the Ant Queen. This lady is really unscrupulous. The Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe controlled the tornado to carry Ning Fan away. All of a sudden, the tornado seemed to have encountered a huge resistance. It could not move forward at all and was forced back. The resistance grew stronger and stronger. Eventually, Luai's Patriarch's tornado was stopped in its tracks, unable to advance any further. Then, above the fiery sky, a man and a woman appeared with a flash. Obviously, they were the ones who had stopped the Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe from escaping. As soon as he saw the two of them blocking his way, the Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe's face darkened. His luck was too bad. He was actually stopped by a quasi-saint realm expert and a fusion stage quasi-saint. That quasi-saint realm expert was none other than the princess of the Holy Ant sect, Hua Hua. Even though she had just advanced to the quasi-saint realm, she was extremely difficult to deal with because she was a candidate of the Ant Queen. Lei Zhe remembered that the fusion stage quasi-saint realm expert was called Ku Bixiong. He was also one of the few experts in the Holy Ant sect. This is bad. This is really bad. In total, there are 3 quasi-saints and 1 fusion stage quasi-saint. Even if we fight with our lives on the line, we will most likely die. The Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe's expression turned extremely ugly. However, even at this critical moment of life and death, he did not have the slightest thought of abandoning Ning Fan and escaping on his own. It was as if Ning Fan's identity as the successor of the Yin Yang sect was countless times more important than his own life. At this moment, Ning Fan was genuinely interested in the predecessor of the Black Devil sect, the Yin Yang sect. What kind of existence was this sect that the Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe valued more than his own life? Lei, since you insist on getting involved in this matter, don't blame my Holy Ant sect for being merciless. Today, you must die. The lady called Hua Hua saw the Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe who was controlling the wind in the tornado at first glance. Her tone was extremely cold and arrogant, as if the Old Ancestor of Lei Zhe was just an ant that could be squashed to death at any time in the eyes of her Holy Ant sect. Then Hua Hua saw Ning Fan. She was surprised at first and then felt that it was a pity. She had seen Ning Fan before on the first floor. At that time, her subordinate, Kubi Xiong, wanted to fight Ning Fan but she stopped him. One of the reasons was that she could see Ning Fan's strength. She was worried that Kubi Xiong would be in danger if they fought. She did not want to lose her only ant general before the battle for the queen ant. The second reason was that she actually had the intention to recruit Ning Fan. That was why she expressed her goodwill to him. The battle for the queen ant needed helpers. Even though Ning Fan was an outsider, it was not like the Holy Ant sect had never looked for outsiders as helpers before. Other people could look for outsiders to be their helpers. Why couldn't she do the same? Unfortunately, Ning Fan just had to kill the Sacred Ant sect's integration stage quasi-saint. In that case, he would have to fight the Holy Ant sect to the death. She had no choice but to give up the idea of recruiting Ning Fan. The Holy Ant sect's reputation was not to be violated. Those who hurt the Holy Ant's finger would have their entire sect killed. I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Unfortunately, I have to kill you with my own hands this time to gain some support for the battle for the Queen Ant. Hua Hua let out a sigh and said to Ning Fan, who was in the tornado, from a distance. Her tone made it seem like she was very reluctant to kill Ning Fan. However, Ning Fan knew that her reluctance was just a disguise. She just wanted to make him lower his guard. Besides, her words were just to buy time. After all, old ancestor Lei Zhe's speed was not slow. As one of them ran and the other chased, they had already left a considerable distance behind Venerable Eagle Yang, who was chasing after them. Hua Hua needed to buy some time for Venerable Eagle Yang to catch up to them. Then they would attack Ning Fan together. That way, their chances of winning would be the highest. Both Ning Fan and old ancestor Lei Zhe were not weaklings. Hua Hua was not arrogant enough to think that she could take down two experts from the other party with just Kubi Xiong, who was an integration stage quasi-saint. This woman is trying to buy time. Ignore her. Let's take a detour before old man Eagle Yang catches up to us. Old ancestor Lei Zhe said anxiously. No. There's no hurry. The Holy Ant sect has captured my people. I also want to capture some of their people. Otherwise, I will be at a disadvantage. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. He was not a person who liked to be chased and bullied by others. Venerable Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king were not easy to deal with. However, Hua Hua and Kubi Xiong were different. Wait, don't be impulsive. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's expression changed drastically when he heard Ning Fan's words. He wanted to stop Ning Fan, but it was already too late. Ning Fan's body swayed and he had already rushed out of the tornado's force. He flew towards Hua Hua and Kubi Xiong with immense baleful qi. What kind of baleful qi was that? It was a baleful qi that could even kill a quasi-saint. All of a sudden, the expressions of Hua Hua and Kubi Xiong, who were initially full of confidence, changed drastically. The magic power qi of 14,800 tribulations. It was a baleful qi that could even kill a quasi-saint. The three blood-red words above his head further increased Ning Fan's ferocious aura. Ning Fan's aura force was too terrifying. It was not something that newly advanced quasi-saints or integration stage quasi-saints like them could withstand. In terms of devil nature alone, it was several times scarier than cultivators who did not cultivate the devil path like old ancestor Lei Zhe. However, Hua Hua and Kubi Xiong firmly believed that even if they were not as strong as the other party in a battle between two quasi-saints, it was impossible for them to be killed instantly. Even a weakling like a silver-armored quasi-saint could fight against Ning Fan for an hour. They just needed to buy some time for Venerable Eagle Yang to catch up to them with the corpse slave king. Then, they would be able to overwhelm Ning Fan with numbers. Stinky brat. I didn't get to fight you last time. This time, let's have a good fight. Kubi Xiong roared. He turned into a ray of light and dashed towards Ning Fan. Unfortunately, before he could get close to Ning Fan, he was sent flying by a giant fist shadow that came from the void. Then, the undying soul-sucking treant walked out from the void with a pair of merciless eyes. Behind him were the undying Black Qilin and the undying myriad Saint Dragon King. This brat actually secretly summoned the ghost flower of the netherworld in the void the moment his enemies appeared. What a terrifying scheme. Did he plan to fight against these two from the very beginning? Old ancestor Lei Zhe was speechless. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Ku Bixiong was sent flying and entangled by the undying ghost soldier that Ning Fan secretly summoned, while Ning Fan himself instantly rushed to Hua Hua's side. Seeing this scene, old ancestor Lei Zhe did not dare to be careless anymore. His body flashed and he wanted to help Ning Fan. Not good. This brat is too careless. The close-range ant poison of the sacred ant sex Empress Hua Hua is extremely terrifying. It would be fine if he attacks her from a distance. However, if he fights her in close combat, he will definitely suffer a great loss. However, he could not help Ning Fan at all. Even though revered Eagle Yang had yet to arrive at Ning Fan's location from afar, he had already summoned a ray of silver light that entangled old ancestor Lei Zhe's legs. That ray of silver light was revered Eagle Yang's natal magic treasure, immortal binding silk. After being entangled by the silk, even with old ancestor Lei Zhe's strength, he could not break free from it within a short period of time. He could only watch Ning Fan and Hua Hua fighting in close combat. Bastard Eagle Yang, you're courting death. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was enraged. He could not allow anything to happen to Ning Fan. He could not. It's not certain who will die. Old man Lei Zhe, you're the one who deserves to die. Revered Eagle Yang sneered. Dong dong dong, the corpse slave king carried revered Eagle Yang on its back, running wildly on the flaming land with its massive feet. Each of its steps would leave a huge footprint that was over 100,000 zhang on the flaming land, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. With the corpse slave king's full speed, he would be able to catch up to Ning Fan and the others in just 30 breaths of time. At that time, revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king would join in the operation to besiege Ning Fan. However, would the sinner Ning Fan be able to stay conscious for 30 breaths of time under Her Highness Hua Hua's deadly poison? I'm afraid he would be captured by Her Highness Hua Hua in just a few breaths. This young man doesn't know Her Highness Hua Hua's background. Choosing to engage in close combat is the same as seeking death. Revered Eagle Yang said disdainfully. As expected, Hua Hua had just exchanged 2 punches with Ning Fan and she had already used her trump card. 5 Poison's Immortal Transformation Barrier. All of a sudden, the poison power inside Hua Hua's body surged violently. It turned into a light barrier that was 1,000 zhang wide and covered her entire body. Ning Fan, who chose to engage in close combat with Hua Hua, was naturally enveloped by the light barrier as well. However, his expression remained the same as usual, as if he was treating the surging poison power as nothing. The enemy's poison power seemed to be very powerful. Its effect was not to kill the enemy with poison but to paralyze them instead. It was a type of paralyzing poison. Its poison power was extremely terrifying. Just a trace of it was enough to paralyze an immortal emperor. If one falls into the immortal transformation barrier and suffers the attacks of hundreds or thousands of traces of poison power, even someone as strong as a quasi-saint realm expert might be paralyzed by Hua Hua's attack and be captured by her. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was not an ordinary person. His poison resistance was extremely terrifying. Unless he was a top-notch poison cultivator among the first-level quasi-saints, no one could poison him at all. She was just a newbie in the Tao of Poison who had just advanced to the quasi-saint realm not long ago. If she wants to poison him, she would need to cultivate diligently for tens of millions of years. Impossible! You have already entered the range of my 5 Poisons Immortal Transformation Barrier. Why are you unscathed? This is impossible. Hua Hua's beautiful face turned pale with fright. One should know that even a quasi-saint realm expert with 13 to 14,000 tribulation magic power would lose a layer of skin after entering the range of her immortal transformation barrier. In order to ignore her poison power, just having a strong magic power was not enough. One must have a deep understanding of the Tao of Poison. Obviously, Ning Fan's mastery of the Tao of Poison was not any weaker than hers. That was also the reason why the poison power she was so proud of was extremely ineffective against him. Is this your trump card? If this is all you have, then everything can end here. You are the one who is careless. Ning Fan said mercilessly. The cross-shaped halos suddenly activated. It was not that he had entered Hua Hua's range because he was careless. Those who dared to fight him in close combat were the ones who were truly careless. Each of the members of the foreign races on the border river had talismans to protect themselves. Thus, they were not afraid of the freezing effect of the cross-shaped halos. However, that was only possible after Ning Fan's cross-shaped halos became famous. His infamy in the Northern Heaven had yet to spread. The people of the Northern Heaven also did not know that there was such an illegal technique like the cross-shaped halos in this world. When Ning Fan activated the cross-shaped halos and Hua Hua was immobilized by the heaven sealing technique that was cast hundreds or thousands of times in a single breath, she was shocked. She was not afraid of the imitation reincarnation technique. However, it was her first time encountering a technique with such a high frequency. She could not move a single inch under such a technique at all. Fortunately, she also had a trump card in her hand. It just needed 3 breaths of time to activate. As long as she uses her trump card, she could ignore the freezing effect and fly away from the range of the cross-shaped halos. Hua Hua knew that with her quasi-saint realm cultivation base, she would not lose her life even if she stood still and endured Ning Fan's attacks for 3 breaths. A quasi-saint realm expert was just that tough. After 3 breaths of time, she could change her position and fight him again. This cross-shaped halos of yours is really heaven-defying. It actually gives me the feeling of a saint ring. It's too strange. This time I was indeed careless. However, if you think that a dignified quasi-saint realm expert would fall for such a petty trick, then you are gravely mistaken. Ancestral force, activate. Ha! My ancestral force has already been activated. Your doomsday is coming. How dare an ant like you go against my sacred ant sect? I will let you know the price of offending the sacred ant sect. All of a sudden, Hua Hua's aura force changed. Her eyes were filled with ferocity. It was as if some kind of terrifying qi was awakening within her body under the activation of her magic power. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. That qi gave him a dangerous feeling. If he really gives Hua Hua a few breaths of time to activate that item, he might really be at a disadvantage. However, even if Hua Hua really stands still and lets him kill her, it would be impossible for him to kill a quasi-saint realm expert within a few breaths. How could a quasi-saint realm expert be so easy to kill? The silver-armored quasi-saint realm expert was completely suppressed by him, and he even wasted 1 hour to kill him. In fact, it took him 1 hour to deplete the qi and blood of the silver-armored quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan did not use the cross-shaped halo's ability to attack Hua Hua. It would be useless. Even if he focused all his attacks, he would not be able to kill a quasi-saint realm expert within a short period of time. All of Ning Fan's normal methods would not be able to kill Hua Hua within a certain period of time and prevent her from escaping from the cross-shaped halos. Since that was the case, he would just have to use some unusual methods. Ning Fan used a method that was faster, simpler, and more effective than any other abilities. He gently tapped Hua Hua's lips with his finger. Shut up. You're too noisy. A massive power of bewitching technique flowed into Hua Hua's body through her lips. Her magic power was in a mess. Once her magic power was in a mess, she could no longer mobilize her magic power to activate her ancestral force. The activation of her ancestral force failed. She did not have any other methods to break free from the cross-shaped halos that could freeze her body thousands of times in a single breath. She was trapped inside the cross-shaped halos like an idiot. Even though her blood and qi of a quasi-saint realm expert was extremely strong and she would not be killed by Ning Fan within a short period of time, Ning Fan did not use any methods to kill her. Instead, he used an extremely despicable and shameless bewitching technique. She was a quasi-saint realm expert. She would not fall just because she was struck by the bewitching technique. However, under the control of the cross-shaped halos, she could not evade it and suffered a great loss. The magic power in her body wanted to resist the power of the bewitching technique. However, in the end, it was still suppressed and sealed by the power of Ning Fan's bewitching technique. 10 breaths. In just 10 breaths, Ning Fan had sealed all of Hua Hua's magic power inside the cross-shaped halos. In just 10 breaths, he had captured a female quasi-saint realm expert alive. This was his first time capturing a quasi-saint realm human cauldron. If he plucked her, Ning Fan did not dare to imagine how much his magic power would increase. Since the Holy Ant sect insisted on hunting him down, they should not blame him for being ruthless. I don't care if you're a princess or a deposed emperor. None of you can escape. Congratulations on becoming the first furnace that I caught after coming to the northern heavens. Your name is Hua Hua, right? That's a nice name. Under Hua Hua's complicated eyes, which were filled with shame, anger, shock, and regret, Ning Fan even sealed her ability to speak. Then, he directly threw her into the profound Yin world and locked her up in the Palace of Repentance. A quasi-saint was not far from becoming a saint. Their every word and action was a law. Sealing Jinhua's ability to speak was also to prevent this woman from using any means to protect herself and escape. No, impossible. At this moment, be it old ancestor Leisure, revered Eagle Yang, or Kubixiong, all of them were shocked by Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-sage realm expert alive within 10 breaths. Even if Hua Hua was a new quasi-sage, she shouldn't have been captured within 10 breaths. How did Ning Fan do it? Because of the cross-shaped halos, they could not see the details. All they saw was Ning Fan pointing his finger, and Hua Hua immediately surrendered. He had captured a quasi-sage with a single finger. Could it be that this lad was actually an ancient great cultivator? Attention everyone. The perpetrator's cultivation had been severely underestimated. He was suspected to be an ancient great cultivator. Don't be left alone. Don't be left alone no matter what. Especially, don't let the few other candidates of the Ant Queen be left alone. Her Highness Hua Hua, she was captured alive by the enemy. She only managed to hold on for 10 breaths when the enemy was injured. Revered Eagle Yang's voice trembled as he spread the news to every corner of the 12th floor of the Earth Abyss. All of a sudden, the expressions of the experts of the light ants who were initially rushing to kill Ning Fan changed drastically. They were filled with fear. Even the great priestess Yin Mother, the strongest expert of the light ant clan, turned pale with fright when she heard the news. An ancient great cultivator? How could he possibly be an ancient great cultivator? Once my heavens will red name technique is planted, I can roughly sense the opponent's cultivation base. The opponent's magic power is definitely only around 15,000 tribulations. How could he possibly be an ancient great cultivator? Could it be that he has a concealment technique that can deceive the heavens' will? Yin Yang would never lie. I can sense that Hua Hua's chi has indeed disappeared from the 12th floor. It seems like she was really captured by the opponent in a single move. Even a top expert among second-level quasi-saints would not be able to capture a quasi-sage realm expert in a single move. Is the opponent really an ancient great cultivator? There is no such person among the ancient great cultivators of the four heavens. Who is he? Why did he choose to appear at this time? Could it be that he is here for the battle of the Queen Ant? What kind of deep grudge does he have against my sacred ant sect? Why did he come here to ruin our plans? No one knew that Ning Fan had used a small bewitching technique to get rid of Hua Hua. This also caused the information to seriously deviate from the truth. The entire light ant clan, from Yin Mother to the ordinary light ants, were in a state of panic. A man's name is like a tree's shadow. If an ancient great cultivator really comes to destroy the sacred ant sect, none of the light ants would dare to ignore such a threat. At this moment, the words "kill without mercy" above Ning Fan's head had become a joke. Who would dare to chase after Ning Fan alone? Instead, they would have to worry about being caught by Ning Fan alone and being killed one by one. Corpse Slave King, you will guard the rear. I will leave first. I must go. Revered Eagle Yang was extremely immoral. He threw the corpse Slave King away, wanting to use its power to stop Ning Fan, who was an ancient great cultivator. Meanwhile, he himself fled 1,000 li away, trying to gather a few quasi-saints and then fuse them together to fight against Ning Fan. It was a wrong judgment. Because of his wrong judgment, the Light Ant clan's pursuit of Ning Fan had a fundamental change. Genius website. Apex mobile version. Chapter 1198. Ning Fan did not expect that his action of capturing a quasi-saint would actually scare Venerable Yin Yang away. Only the corpse slave king was chasing after him. Venerable Yin Yang was nowhere to be found. Everyone could see that he had already escaped from this place. Venerable Yin Yang was not the only one who was afraid of Ning Fan. Even further away, those experts of the Light Ant clan who originally wanted to chase after Ning Fan chose to turn around and flee. They no longer had the courage to continue chasing after Ning Fan. Ning Fan could clearly feel that the countless killing intents that locked onto him were getting further and further away from him. The Light Ant clan was wrong. They had overestimated Ning Fan's strength. They mistakenly thought that Ning Fan was an ancient great cultivator who could destroy heaven and earth. They were scared. Could be Xiong. I have something to do at the last minute. I'll leave first. You and the corpse slave king work together and stop this red-named great cultivator. Don't let him chase after me. This is an order. Far away from them, Venerable Yin Yang hurriedly transmitted his voice to Kabixiong while escaping. Perhaps it was because Venerable Yin Yang was too nervous. His tone of voice was a little shaky. He did not use the secret sound transmission at all. Instead, his voice was so loud that even Ning Fan could hear it. His expression instantly turned extremely strange. A great cultivator? That Venerable Yin Yang actually thought that I was an ancient great cultivator? What kind of joke is this? I'm not your subordinate. I'm loyal to the royal family. Why should I sacrifice myself to buy time for your tribe to escape? After receiving Venerable Yin Yang's voice transmission, Kabixiong was so angry that he scolded him. Of course, he was scolding Venerable Yin Yang for being shameless. This man is simply a typical example of a Taoist who would rather sacrifice his friends than himself. When he saw that the situation was not right, he actually abandoned his companions and ran away. What's more, he actually asked his companions to cover for him. Kabixiong certainly would not sacrifice himself to buy time for others to escape. He was not a corpse slave king with low spiritual intelligence. He also wanted to escape. He was also shocked by Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-saint in 10 breaths. Kabixiong did not dare to imagine how high Ning Fan's cultivation base was to be able to capture a quasi-saint alive in just 10 breaths. That's right. That old man Yin Yang was right. This man is an ancient great cultivator. This was because even a second-stage quasi-sage would not be able to capture a quasi-sage within 10 breaths. As soon as this thought crossed his mind, Kabixiong's fear towards Ning Fan immediately multiplied by countless times. Inwardly, he complained incessantly. He hated himself for being hot-headed and following the princess to snatch Ning Fan's achievement. What did the ancient great cultivators of the Age of Chaos mean? It meant that he was invincible in the world. It meant that they were already standing at the peak of the Age of Chaos. Even Her Highness Huaho could only last for 10 breaths of time against Ning Fan. How many breaths of time could he, a quasi-saint who temporarily advanced to the immortal realm through fusion, last? 5 breaths? 3 breaths? Or was it only 1 breath? Or perhaps he could not even withstand a single attack from Ning Fan. Ant-Man Immortal Escape Technique. Kabixiong used the Holy Ant Sex signature escape technique. Without any movement, he instantly jumped out of the encirclement of the soul-absorbing tree and the other indestructible ghost soldiers. With a leap, he flew a distance of several continents. It's this kind of escape technique again. How troublesome, Ning Fan frowned. He wanted to chase after Kabixiong, but the corpse slave king who arrived late stopped him. This corpse slave king is so powerful. It opened its mouth and breathed out a monstrous amount of corpse chi which easily shrouded several continents around it, sealing the heaven and earth with its corpse chi. As a result, all of Ning Fan's traveling lights were sealed. He wanted to chase after Kabixiong, but he could not do anything. He could only watch Kabixiong run away. He summoned the sea reversing sword and tried to cut through the corpse chi that sealed the heaven and earth. However, he discovered that although the corpse chi seemed to be just a gas that filled the sky, when he cut it with his sword, it produced the sound of metal colliding with jade. It was extremely strange. When the sea reversing sword cut through the invisible corpse chi, its power was directly absorbed by the corpse chi. It could not break through the corpse chi at all. This is the Corpse Slave King's Annihilation Formation. Once this formation is activated, even an ancient great cultivator won't be able to break through it, let alone you and me. There are only two ways to get out of this formation. One is for the Corpse Slave King to remove the formation on its own accord. The other is to kill this Corpse Slave King from the inside of the formation. Little friend, don't tell me you're really an ancient great cultivator? Old ancestor Lei Zhe broke free from the restraints of the binding immortal silk and flew to Ning Fan's side. After explaining the Corpse Slave King's abilities, he carefully looked at Ning Fan. If Ning Fan was really an ancient great cultivator, he would probably have to address himself as a junior when he interacted with Ning Fan again. No. Ning Fan did not pretend to be an ancient great cultivator. Now that they were in a battlefield, even if he wanted to pretend to be an ancient great cultivator, he would give himself away in the battle against the Corpse Slave King. It was impossible for him to crush this Corpse Slave King like how he crushed Hua Hua. You're really not? Then how did you capture a quasi-saint in 10 breaths? Old ancestor Lei Zhe did not seem to believe Ning Fan's words. Before Ning Fan could answer, the Corpse Slave King's iron fist had already landed on him. Oh my God! This Corpse Slave King's body is so huge. Its fist is actually bigger than a cultivation planet. How was this a fist smashing down? This was a falling star. Seeing this, old ancestor Lei Zhe no longer had the mood to get to the bottom of it. His expression changed greatly. Regardless of how you captured the quasi-saint, let's join hands and quickly kill this Corpse Slave King. Before that old man Yin Yang escaped, he must have given this Corpse Slave King a death order. If we don't kill this fiend, both of us can forget about leaving this barrier alive. It was the wind count pouch. While old ancestor Lei Zhe was talking, his movements were not slow at all. He even took out his wind count pouch. This wind count pouch was really powerful. It could capture people across domains and it could also kill people with ease. As soon as the pouch opened, silver wind runes gushed out, turning into a silver hurricane that collided with the Corpse Slave King's gigantic fist. Boom! The Corpse Slave King gained the upper hand in this exchange of blows. The Corpse Slave King's fist was blocked by the hurricane, but it was not injured at all. On the other hand, the hurricane created by old ancestor Lei Zhe was shattered into billions of wind runes by the Corpse Slave King's punch. Then, the wind runes began to crumble in large batches. In just one exchange, half of the runes were gone. Seeing this, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. He now had a clear understanding of this Corpse Slave King's strength. This Corpse Slave King was much stronger than old ancestor Lei Zhe. It was a tricky enemy. The most troublesome thing about it was that it could continue to absorb other small corpse slaves to fuse with itself and become stronger. If Ning Fan and old ancestor Lei Zhe are really surrounded by the 4 quasi-saints including the Corpse Slave King, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Fortunately, Ning Fan had already captured one of the 4 quasi-saints and scared away the other 2. The Corpse Slave King was obviously not strong enough to hold the fort alone. Little friend, I will attack the Corpse Slave King from the left. You and your indestructible ghost soldiers will attack from the right. This Corpse Slave King is strong, but it is not without weaknesses. Its defense against physical techniques is extremely heaven-defying, but it is vulnerable to magic attacks. It is a corpse slave that was born in the land of extreme fire. Its body possesses the fire element. If you attack it with the water element, it will be very effective. As he spoke, old ancestor Lei Zhe had already attacked the Corpse Slave King from the left. The Corpse Slave King's left fist was blocked by old ancestor Lei Zhe again. Roar! The Corpse Slave King was enraged. Its left fist was blocked by old ancestor Lei Zhe again and again. In its fury, It also swung its right fist, planning to smash old ancestor Lei Zhe to death with both fists. Since Ning Fan had already assigned the right path to attack, he naturally would not miss the corpse slave king's right fist attack to old ancestor Lei Zhe. Relying on the spiritual connection, he gave the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers an order. Upon receiving the order, they immediately stood in front of the corpse slave king's right fist. Indestructible soul-absorbing tree. Indestructible black Qilin. Indestructible thousand holiness dragon king. The ones who blocked the corpse slave king's right fist were a quasi-saint and 2 half-saints. In Ning Fan's opinion, no matter how strong the corpse slave king was, it should be able to block that punch. However, he was wrong. The corpse slave king's physical strength was too terrifying. Except for the soul-absorbing tree, the black Qilin and thousand holiness dragon king were all blown up by the corpse slave king's punch. If the black Qilin and thousand holiness dragon king didn't have undying bodies, the corpse slave king's punch could have killed them directly. At this moment, the power of the indestructible ghost soldiers was displayed. Even though their bodies were blown up by the corpse slave king, the black Qilin and thousand holiness dragon king reformed their bodies in the blink of an eye. Once again, they launched a series of attacks against the corpse slave king's right fist. The corpse slave king was enraged. Its spiritual intelligence was too low. It could not understand what was happening in front of it. The 2 half-saints that it had killed actually came back to life again and again in front of it. It was not happy. It was determined to smash these indestructible ghost soldiers into a pulp. Unfortunately, no matter how many times it killed the black Qilin and thousand holiness dragon king, they could still regenerate rapidly under the influence of the underworld ghost flower. If a person with a normal brain saw how difficult it was to deal with the indestructible ghost soldiers, they would certainly understand that the right way to deal with them was to kill Ning Fan, who was controlling them. However, the corpse slave king did not think of this. Thus, it became a tragedy. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's frenzied attacks from the left and the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers from the right. Even without Ning Fan's attack, the corpse slave king was already at a disadvantage. It began to be suppressed by 1 man and 3 ghosts. However, what shocked Ning Fan the most was that even though Patriarch Lei Zhe and the others were suppressing the corpse demon king and attacking its weak points with all kinds of water element techniques, the rate at which its qi and blood were being depleted could still be described as slow. It was impossible for the corpse slave king to not be injured when it was besieged by 2 half-saints and 2 half-saints. However, its qi and blood were too strong. No matter how serious the damage was, it would not have any obvious effect on its body. Ning Fan estimated the corpse slave king's qi and blood. The more he calculated, the more shocked he became. Even if this corpse slave king stood still and let old ancestor Lei Zhe and the others attack it, the latter would need 10 days and 9 nights to kill it. The problem was, would the corpse slave king stand still and let you attack it? Wouldn't it know how to defend itself? Wouldn't the qi and blood it lost slowly recover as time passed? After a round of battle, old ancestor Lei Zhe also estimated the corpse slave king's massive qi and blood. His face turned green. How am I supposed to fight it? The corpse slave king's qi and blood recovery speed was almost as fast as the rate at which it was injured. Even though he knew a lot about the corpse slave king of the Ant clan, he had never fought it personally before. This was his first time facing a corpse slave king head-on. In the past, he had only heard about how powerful the corpse slave king was. Today, he found out that it was not just powerful but also a monster. In the Age of Chaos, there were very few people who could be called monsters. This corpse slave king was definitely one of them. There was no end to the corpse slave king's qi and blood, but its magic power was limited. The corpse slave king's weakness was its magic attacks. Ning Fan had to maintain a certain speed of magic attacks to continuously cause damage to the corpse slave king. The consumption of his magic power was huge. At this rate, he could only fight the corpse slave king for 3 days at most. After that, his magic power would be depleted. Can he kill the corpse slave king within 3 days? Can he escape from the corpse slave king's barrier within 3 days? Will the people of the Ant clan realize that Ning Fan is not an ancient great cultivator and return to besiege him again? If the battle drags on for too long, they will definitely realize that Ning Fan is not an ancient great cultivator. It is impossible for an ancient great cultivator to be trapped to death by a mere corpse slave king. I can kill the corpse slave king and walk out of the barrier. If my magic power is depleted and I still can't kill this corpse slave king, I will use my last resort. No matter what, I must send little friend Ning out of this place. I can die, but the incense of the yin-yang ritual cannot be severed. Old ancestor Lei Zhe made up his mind. The last resort that he was thinking of was to detonate the primordial spirit of the quasi-saint. The self-destruction of a quasi-saint's primordial spirit was extremely terrifying. Even ancient great cultivators would not dare to get involved in it recklessly. If old ancestor Lei Zhe detonated his primordial spirit, even if he could not kill the corpse slave king, he could at least create a crack in the annihilation barrier, creating a path for Ning Fan to escape. He was not doing all this for Ning Fan, who was just a stranger he met by chance. Instead, he was doing all this for the mission of the yin-yang sex inheritance. This had nothing to do with whether he was weak or not. This was a belief that he had to carry out no matter what. Besides, it was not certain that a quasi-saint would die from self-destruction. They were already very close to the saint realm. Even if those experts among the quasi-saints self-destructed their primordial spirits, they still had a chance to survive. Of course, the loss of their cultivation base was definitely huge. Of course, Ning Fan did not know that old ancestor Lei Zhe had already lost his confidence after being frightened by the corpse slave king's powerful qi and blood. He even had the thought of risking his life to protect himself. If he knew about this, he might be a little touched. Unfortunately, he did not know. He did not participate in the siege of the corpse slave king. Instead, he was observing it. The soul-absorbing tree is good at wood element attacks. The black qilin is good at fire element attacks. The Wan Sheng Dragon King is good at water element attacks. However, his attack power is too weak. It's not enough to cause significant damage to the corpse slave king. Senior Lei Zhe is a titled wind cultivator. Even though he also knows water element attacks, they aren't strong enough. This is also why he often can't cause effective damage to the corpse slave king. This corpse slave king is actually summoning its little corpse slaves again. Ning Fan's face turned gloomy. The corpse slave king was unwilling to be at a disadvantage. It let out a series of roars, summoning all the little corpse slaves on the 12th floor. Only the Ant clan was afraid of Ning Fan, who was an ancient great cultivator. However, the corpse slaves were not. They did not have brains. They only knew how to carry out the orders of the Ant clan and fight to the death. The little corpse slaves that were summoned fused with the corpse slave king's body one after another, causing its aura force to surge again. It was still growing stronger. It could still grow stronger. As long as it could absorb the power of the little corpse slaves endlessly, it would be invincible. The current corpse slave king was already strong enough to make old ancestor Lei Zhe feel despair. If it becomes even stronger, old ancestor Lei Zhe panicked. Just as he was about to remind Ning Fan to kill the little corpse slaves that came to his aid, Ning Fan had already taken action. It was impossible for him to just stand aside and watch the battle. He had already observed enough. He knew very well that it was impossible for old ancestor Lei Zhe and the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers to kill this corpse slave king no matter what. This corpse slave king was already terrifyingly strong. He would not allow it to continue absorbing the little corpse slaves to grow stronger. Chi Ning Fan swung the sea-reversing sword continuously. One corpse slave after another was cut into pieces by Ning Fan. However, there were still many corpse slaves that managed to avoid Ning Fan's attacks and forcibly fused with the corpse slave king's body. The corpse slaves that were summoned by the corpse slave king were not only immortal venerables but also many first-step corpse slaves with weak cultivation bases. There were just too many corpse slaves. They were endless and there were more than 1 million of them. If all of them fused with the corpse slave king's body, Ning Fan would not have full confidence to kill it. There are too many of them that slipped through the net. I need to use an attack that has a wider range. I'm afraid the Corpse Slave King is using water element attacks. Unfortunately, water element attacks are exactly what I'm good at. Summon, Boundless Ocean. Ning Fan placed the formation marks on the ground of flames. All of a sudden, the ground of flames was drowned by an ocean that appeared out of nowhere. The ocean water was light red like blood. It came from the true world and was called Boundless. As soon as the ocean appeared, the power of Ning Fan's water element attacks within its range increased tremendously. This young man can actually summon such a large ocean in a place without water. Old Ancestor Leisure was astounded. Water drowning bottle, appear. All of a sudden, the sky of flames was replaced by the Ni-Chin Sea. The sky turned into an upside-down ocean. Then, the waves of the boundless ocean on the ground soared into the sky while the waves of the Ni-Chin Sea in the sky poured down. The raging waves finally converged and drowned everything within the barrier. This was the strongest water element attack that Ning Fan could use. It was the strongest water attack that he created by fusing the water of the boundless ocean and the Ni-Chin Sea, the boundless ocean. This time, Ning Fan used his strongest magic power without any hesitation. The power of the attack was so strong that even old Ancestor Leisha's expression changed greatly. This young man actually used such an indiscriminate attack on such a large scale. Is he trying to kill me as well? Of course, Ning Fan would not attack old Ancestor Leisha together with him. Even though the boundless ocean would attack all living beings indiscriminately, there was one place that would not be attacked. That was the water drowning bottle. I'll have to trouble you, senior. Please take shelter in this junior's bottle. My magic power has become stronger again. The power of this attack is also stronger than before. If that's the case, I won't dare to stay in the outside world and endure the waves. Ning Fan brought old Ancestor Leisha and hid inside the bottle world of the realm drowned water bottle. As for the bottle itself, it was floating and sinking in the waves. Ning Fan did not keep the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers into the bottle world. After all, they would not die. Following Ning Fan's order, they continued to attack the Corpse Slave King while enduring the waves. The Corpse Slave King was in trouble. None of the little corpse slaves that he summoned was at the Immortal Emperor realm. Facing the indiscriminate attack of the boundless ocean, no matter how many of them come, they would all die. In just a few breaths' time, all the little corpse slaves were killed by the waves. The number of little corpse slaves that died exceeded 3 million. This included more than 400 immortal venerable realm corpses. They were all the little corpse slaves of the Light Ant clan. Unfortunately, they were summoned to this place by the Corpse Slave King. Unfortunately, they were all killed by Ning Fan in one fell swoop. The Corpse Slave King himself was even more pitiful. He was a dried corpse and he had the fire element. What he feared the most was water. Such a large-scale water element attack was enough to make him instinctively feel afraid. Of course, even though the boundless ocean was powerful, he could not kill an existence like the Corpse Slave King instantly. With his massive chi and blood, even if he withstood the boundless ocean's attack, he would still be alive for 2 hours. If he was smarter, he could remove the barrier at any time and escape from the range of the waves. However, he was stubborn. Venerable Yin Yang ordered him to entangle Ning Fan and not allow him to escape. Thus, he did not dare to escape. Even if he died here, he would not dare to escape. This was also the reason why the quasi-saints of the Light Ant clan would usually send a quasi-saint to accompany the Corpse Slave King. It could not be helped. The Corpse Slave King was too stupid. He needed someone to guide him and tell him to use different methods to deal with different enemies. If Venerable Yin Yang did not escape, the Corpse Slave King would definitely beat Ning Fan and his group to a pulp. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Venerable Yin Yang made a wrong decision. The Corpse Slave King had no choice but to bear Ning Fan's anger alone. He could not see through the weakness of the underworld ghost flower. He knew that he was no match for the boundless ocean, but he did not dare to run away. His battle intent did not diminish. He roared furiously in the waves, pushing back the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers that were besieging him time and time again. However, no matter what, he could not kill those 3 annoying indestructible ghost soldiers. Even the boundless ocean could not drown those 3 indestructible ghost soldiers. The underworld ghost flower was simply one of the greatest evil spirits in the world. The indestructible ghost soldiers that it summoned seemed to be indestructible and indestructible. Inside the waves, the underworld ghost flower bloomed beautifully as usual. Moreover, after absorbing the life force of more than 3 million little corpse slaves, it had accumulated a great amount of power. I can create indestructible ghost soldiers again. This is a great opportunity. As long as Ning Fan can kill the corpse slave king here, he would have a certain chance of creating an indestructible ghost soldier. If he can really do that, not only would he have another quasi-saint fighter under his command, but this time, the quasi-saint would not be a weak quasi-saint like the soul-absorbing tree. Instead, it would be an existence that was stronger than old ancestor Leisha. World Drowning Bottle. Could this be the famous treasure of the great Emperor Drowning? It's one of the top 5 magic treasures in the illusory world, the World Drowning Bottle. With old ancestor Leisha's means, he could still vaguely sense the changes in the outside world even if he was hiding inside the bottle. He was terrified by the power of the World Drowning Bottle. He had heard about the various battle achievements of the great Emperor Drowning Bottle and the ancient legend of the World Drowning Bottle. Now that he had witnessed the power of the World Drowning Bottle with his own eyes, he felt that the description of the power of the World Drowning Bottle in the legends was too low. The real World Drowning Bottle seemed to be much stronger and more powerful than the legends. Even the corpse slave king, who was a monster of chi and blood, had suffered considerable damage from the attack of the World Drowning Bottle. Of course, old ancestor Leisha did not know that Ning Fan's attack was not just a simple World Drowning Bottle. Instead, it was a combination of the dual water attacks of the Ni-Chin Sea and the boundless ocean. Naturally, its power was much stronger than the legends. Ning Fan just answered casually. At this moment, all of his attention was focused on controlling the waves in the outside world. The boundless reverse ocean could not kill the corpse slave king instantly. As a result, Ning Fan had no choice but to be prepared to continue fighting against the corpse slave king. Controlling the boundless reverse ocean for a long time was extremely taxing on one's mental state. Fortunately, Ning Fan's mental state was much stronger than before. Otherwise, he would not be able to maintain the boundless reverse ocean for too long. The corpse slave king was submerged in the waves. Under Ning Fan's control, countless undercurrents formed a whirlpool, trying to shred the corpse slave king into pieces. However, the corpse slave king's chi and blood was too strong. Even though each wave could cause a lot of damage to him, the speed of his chi and blood was still not fast. It could only be said that it was not slow. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough. At this rate, Ning Fan would need to maintain the boundless reverse ocean for more than 2 hours before he could kill the corpse slave king. Putting aside the fact that his mental state could not maintain the attacks of the waves for that long, just the fact that he, a dignified, ancient great cultivator, could not kill the corpse slave king in 2 hours would certainly arouse the suspicion of the Ant Clan alone, just as Ning Fan expected. Currently, the members of the Ant Clan had already begun to doubt Ning Fan's identity as a great cultivator. Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-saint alive in 10 breaths' time was too frightening. Such a domineering action was completely the style of a great cultivator in ancient times. That was why Venerable Yin Yang had underestimated Ning Fan's strength. However, it did not mean that all the quasi-saints of the Ant Clan were fools. Ning Fan was being hunted by the Ant Clan with a red name. All the experts of the Ant Clan could sense Ning Fan's situation through a trace of connection. It was fine that Ning Fan was just observing the battle and did not attack the corpse slave king. It was not strange that old ancestor Leisha and a few indestructible ghost soldiers could not kill the corpse slave king. However, even though Ning Fan clearly took action, he still could not kill the corpse slave king in a short period of time. This made the quasi-saints of the Ant Clan doubt Ning Fan's identity as a great cultivator. The offensive power of Ning Fan's boundless reverse ocean was quite good. Even ordinary quasi-saints would have to avoid it. However, it seemed to be still far from the power of the magic techniques of a great cultivator in ancient times. Could it be that he isn't a great cultivator in ancient times? My red name perception of heaven's will isn't wrong? In the royal city of the Ant clan, the great priestess En Mu frowned. No, the situation isn't right. After I left the corpse slave king behind, I was already prepared that the corpse slave king would be crushed. However, that's not the case at all. Even though the corpse slave king couldn't win against that young man's water attack, it was only because their attributes were incompatible. Judging from the power of the technique, if that young man relied on his own strength, he wouldn't be able to defeat the corpse slave king at all. Why is that? Could it be? Several hundred continents away, Venerable Yin Yang stopped running away. His expression turned slightly ugly. Could it be that Ning Fan isn't a great cultivator in ancient times at all? Could it be that he had underestimated Ning Fan's strength? Could it be that all the information he sent back to the great priestess was wrong? Could it be that the entire Ant clan was scared witless by a young man who was even weaker than the corpse slave king? What a great humiliation! What a great humiliation! If all of this is true, I, Yin Yang, will become the biggest laughingstock of the Ant clan for being scared away by a young man. Not only me, the entire Ant clan and the holy Ant sect will lose all face. Zhengdat Venerable Yin Yang's eyes were burning with anger. He was no longer running away. He wanted to return to where he came from and join hands with the corpse slave king to kill Ning Fan and wash away the humiliation. Not only Venerable Yin Yang, but countless other Ant clan members also locked their killing intent on Ning Fan. They could not get rid of it even if they were separated by the bottle world. This is troublesome. The members of the Ant clan are heading back to this place. Their killing intent is approaching again, Ning Fan said with an ugly expression. What? Could it be that you really aren't a great cultivator in ancient times? Could it be that they have already found out about this? Old Ancestor Lei's expression changed greatly. They could not even kill a single corpse slave king. If Venerable Yin Yang returns and more quasi-saints of the Ant clan come to their aid, they would definitely die. I already said that I'm not a great cultivator in ancient times, but Senior didn't believe me. Ning Fan sighed gently. After that, his eyes suddenly turned sharp and frenzied. He would not give those experts of the Ant clan the time to return. If you make one wrong move, I will make sure that you make all the mistakes. It was you who gave me the chance to face the corpse slave king alone. If I don't kill this corpse slave king and try to subdue this undying ghost soldier, wouldn't it be a waste? Is the corpse slave king's water attack really the only weakness? Not necessarily. Doesn't it have another weakness? That's the weakness that all undead creatures have. The 5 Yin Yang swords. The mortal sword executes life. What it executes is the undead creatures. Of course, since the corpse slave king's chi and blood is so strong, even the mortal sword executioner might not be able to kill it in a short time. However, what if the mortal sword executioner is used together with the boundless sea force? Ever since Ning Fan mastered the 5 Yin Yang swords, this was the first time he had such a thought. It could also be said that it was a kind of epiphany. The 5 Yin Yang swords did not necessarily need to be used with a sword. As long as one comprehends the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords, all the Daos in the world could be combined with the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords and cause fatal damage to the enemy. Theoretically, the waves that drowned everything could also be combined with the sword principle of the 5 Yin Yang swords. Perhaps, the 5 Yin Yang swords was not just a sword technique from the beginning. Instead, it was a killing technique that was not limited to any weapon, any magic technique, or any form of attack. Ning Fan tried to integrate the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords into the boundless reverse sea. All of a sudden, every drop of seawater had sword intent and turned into billions of droplets of water. Theoretically, it seemed to work. However, the actual situation seemed to be a little wrong. After integrating the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords, the waves of the boundless reverse sea suddenly surged violently. It was like a drop of water being poured into boiling oil. Heaven and earth began to shake. Fellow Taoist Ning, what have you done? The waves outside seem to have become quite violent. Don't tell me that this sea is going to explode. What is going on? I have never heard of a water element divine ability that could cause a fire element explosion. I don't know why, but my heart is beating wildly and I can't control it. It's as if I have encountered a great danger. Old ancestor Leija had a bad feeling. I've gone too far. I'm sorry for offending you. Senior, this junior will be responsible for all the injuries that you have suffered this time. Ning Fan's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. It seemed like he had overdrawn his magic power. Without knowing why, he suddenly apologized to old ancestor Leija. What do you mean by that? Before old ancestor Leija could understand what Ning Fan meant, the bottle world in front of him exploded into pieces at the next moment. The boundless reverse sea had exploded. Moreover, it was an explosion with a terrifying force that Ning Fan did not expect. Even Ning Fan and old ancestor Leija who were hiding in the bottle world were not spared. They were dragged into the explosion. In the midst of the explosion, the miserable shriek of the corpse demon king was even louder than the explosion. His chi and blood rapidly weakened as the waves collapsed. It's fake. It's all fake. What ancient great cultivator? It's all dog shit. Watch how I chop off your dog head to vent my anger. Venerable Yin Yang flew into a rage out of humiliation. He returned to where Ning Fan was at full speed. He wanted to kill Ning Fan to vent his anger. He wanted to expose Ning Fan's fake identity as a great cultivator. He wanted to expose all of Ning Fan's disguises. It seems a little wrong to say that. Ning Fan didn't pretend to be an ancient great cultivator from the beginning. It was his own misunderstanding. All of his embarrassing actions were his own fault. Humph. Those details were fine no matter what. In short, he wanted to kill Ning Fan to vent his anger. Otherwise, he would not be able to answer to the great priest when he returns. How can a person who can't even defeat the corpse demon king be an ancient great cultivator? How dare he provoke my holy ant sect with such little strength? He's really courting death. What's going on over there? Boom! It was the sound of waves collapsing in the distance. Buzzed that it was temporary deafness and tinnitus. The sound of the explosion was too violent. Even with Venerable Yin Yang's cultivation base and the distance between them which was more than 10 continents away, he still could not stop the ringing in his ears. Venerable Yin Yang's expression instantly changed. He was frightened once again. As a light ant clan's quasi-sage, he could clearly sense that the corpse demon king's chi and blood were rapidly decreasing in the midst of the explosions. 95% chi and blood. 88% chi and blood, 63% chi and blood, 55% chi and blood, 42% chi and blood, 31% chi and blood, 20% chi and blood, 10% chi and blood. All of his chi and blood were gone. The corpse demon king only lasted for 9 breaths of time in that explosion and died. What kind of explosion was that? It actually killed the corpse demon king in just 9 breaths of time. Is that young man really not an ancient great cultivator? If he isn't, how could he kill an expert like the corpse demon king in just 9 breaths of time? I've been tricked. He pretended that he could not defeat the corpse demon king just now. It was all a lie. He wanted to trick me into coming back to kill me. Now that he saw that I was not far away from him, he stopped pretending and killed the corpse demon king directly. He captured the flower flame in 10 breaths of time and killed the corpse demon king in 9 breaths of time. If this young man isn't an ancient great cultivator, who else would dare to call himself an ancient great cultivator? 11 continents. The distance between me and him is only 11 continents. Why did I turn around and come back? I'm simply the stupidest ant in the world. With the speed of an ancient great cultivator, he can catch up with me in an instant. I must escape. It's meaningless to die here. Only by merging with the other quasi-sage light ants can I fight against him. Venerable Yin Yang was scared out of his wits. He was scared away by Ning Fan again. He had misjudged the situation again. The only fortunate thing was that this time, Venerable Yin Yang was the only one who misjudged Ning Fan's strength. This time, the great priestess Yin Mother, who was in the Light Ant Imperial City, was very sure that Ning Fan was not an ancient great cultivator, even though Ning Fan only had 9 breaths of time to kill the corpse demon king. That was just a fluke. This young man would not have such luck when facing any of the quasi-sage Light Ant race. Idiot! Idiot! Why did you run again? Quickly go and catch that red-named sinner. He was injured by the explosion that he created. This is the moment when he is at his weakest. Idiot! Idiot! An ancient great cultivator? How can this young man be an ancient great cultivator? Why would an ancient great cultivator go to such great lengths to kill a corpse demon king? He even got himself involved in the explosion and suffered severe injuries. Yin Yang, can you hear me? I'm talking to you. Why aren't you replying? Catch that young man. I order you to go back and catch him. Bastard. The great priestess Yin Mother wanted to contact Venerable Yin Yang and tell him the truth. However, he could not hear her voice at all. The ringing in his ears because of the explosion had not stopped yet. He could not hear the voice transmission of the great priestess Yin Mother at all. He was being controlled by the fear that he had created himself, on the 6th level of the Earth Abyss. The omniscient old man was assembling the new puppet body of Stone Warrior in his research room. Suddenly, his hands stopped moving as if he had sensed something. That feeling just now seemed to be 2 to 1. Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3. This path is irreversible. If we go against it, immortals will collapse and the world will be destroyed. No. How could it be 2 to 1? It should be an illusion. It must be an illusion. However, what is the Yin and Yang sect? What is 2 to 1? Alright, Master said that 2 to 1 means to combine 2 into 1. It means to trace back to the origin. But who is Master? His Tao has been destroyed. The Tao can no longer exist. What am I saying? Why can't I understand it? The omniscient old man who did not have a good memory shook his head and put the illusion behind him. He continued to work happily. Assembling puppets was his favorite thing to do. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.